Our story begins at a stone fortress, set beneath a grim and foreboding sky. Inside, Count Ignis Cornelius stares in horror, demanding to know what was just said. A hooded doctor admits that in his long career, he has never seen such a case. The Count desperately asks what the doctor has learned about his son Ballad's condition. The doctor's words land with the force of a sudden, shocking lightning strike. He raises one finger, emphasizing the single, unbelievable fact he has discovered. The nobleman's entire body trembles with a mixture of rage and utter helplessness. He whispers to himself that what he's heard simply cannot be true. His hand, resting on a table, clenches into a white-knuckled fist of despair. Through a cracked door, the sickly young Ballad is seen lying in his bed. The small boy is dwarfed by his enormous pillow, his breathing shallow. He sweats and grimaces, trapped within the grip of a relentless nightmare. In a featureless black void, an old man's eyes snap open with a start. The samurai, Satoshi, scans the darkness, wondering where this place could possibly be. He stands in profile, silently contemplating the oppressive, unending emptiness around him. Stroking his beard, he calmly deduces that this must be the netherworld. This is Okasunai Satoshi, once of the Usuji clan, who finds the afterlife dreary. With a warrior's stoicism, he accepts the simple truth: he has died. He clenches his fist, lamenting that he can no longer fight upon the battlefield. A memory flashes of his former glory, a fearsome warrior on a chaotic field. His eye in the flashback burns with the fierce intensity of a seasoned killer. His fearsome helmet, a symbol of his past life, fills the panel. His one lingering regret in life was his failure to kill Lord Date Massimian. Back in the void, he scolds himself for being so attached to his old life. He takes a step, but stops short, suddenly sensing another presence. The old warrior's eyes widen with surprise and intense curiosity. A modern young man appears, looking bored and asking what is going on. The newcomer, Maseru, is utterly confused, with no idea how he arrived here. He tries to retrace his steps, remembering he was heading to a university exam. Then he recalls being distracted, pondering the merits of cat ears versus dog ears. As he was lost deep in this crucial thought, something happened. A flashback shows him daydreaming as a truck's side view mirror reflects him. The memory becomes clear. He stepped directly into the path of a speeding truck. He strikes a goofy pose in the void, laughing at the absurdity of it all. He stands alone in the darkness, his back turned as he processes this. With a nervous laugh, he admits he cannot remember anything after that moment. His laughter dies as he lies defeated in the empty, black space. The full, horrifying realization finally hits him, and he screams that he's dead. He is furious, having always planned for a much cooler set of last words. This is Oka Maseru, an unfortunate high schooler, feeling tired even in death. He regrets wasting the night before his exam browsing. Why **P***I? He muses that it would be amazing to be reincarnated with his modern knowledge. His face remains placid as the gears of a familiar trope begin to turn. The possibility starts to feel more and more real in his mind. His eyes snap open as he realizes what being dead could truly mean. He erupts in manic glee, thrilled at the idea of becoming an awesome protagonist. His excitement fades as he dismisses the idea as too convenient to be true. He knows such a thing would never happen, but then he hears a faint sound. He turns his head, startled by the noise, wondering what it could be. Back in the real world, the Count and a woman hear a faint calling. A tiny, frail hand emerges from the blankets, much to their confusion. A blank panel signifies a moment of suspense before the reveal. The young boy, Ballad, suddenly jolts upright in his bed, eyes wide. A close-up shows his pupils are pinpricks of pure shock and confusion. He stares at the lavish canopy bed, his mind screaming a silent "WHA?" A woman with white hair lunges at him, crying with relief that he's awake. He panics in her embrace, not understanding who she is or what she's saying. He struggles helplessly as his father, Count Cornelius, watches from the foot of the bed. The Count is relieved, but he remains deeply worried about the doctor's words. He recalls the diagnosis of a second personality putting a strain on Ballad's body. The doctor clarifies that it isn't just one other personality, shocking the Count. The truth is revealed. The souls of Maseru and Satoshi now reside within Ballad. A map displays the Maishia Kingdom, identifying Count Cornelius's home and domain. The map zooms in on the Count's territory, a great woodland on the eastern border. It is an abundant land, rich in natural resources like timber. A waterfall illustrates the pristine and untamed nature of the domain. However, constant wars with the neighboring Maishia Kingdom have strained their finances. Years later, an older Ballad winks, presenting a ring, with his maid Sei behind him. In a vast forest, Sei searches for her young master, who has wandered off. She wonders where he could have gone, knowing he ventured further than usual. A close-up highlights the intricate details of her proper maid uniform. She smiles, confident that she will be able to find him before lunch. A sudden, loud crash echoes through the woods, sending a flock of birds scattering. Sei's expression turns deadpan. She now knows exactly where he is. A small hand lies limp in the grass next to a heavy wooden training sword. Ballad is sprawled out on the ground, completely and utterly defeated. With a weary gasp, he groans that he thinks he's going to die. A voice from above mockingly prays for his short life's safe passage. Fueled by indignation, Ballad pushes himself up from the ground, cursing. He yells at his mother, Selearn, asking what kind of parent says such a thing. Her face is cast in shadow, a deeply sinister and pleased smile on her lips. Ballad breaks into a cold sweat, realizing he has made a grave mistake. She is overjoyed he still has energy, and their spar resumes with a mighty clash. He grits his teeth, determined to end this quickly for his important arrangements. He lunges forward, hoping to finish the fight with a single, decisive blow. Selearn watches his clumsy approach, her expression calm and analytical. Ballad puts all of his focus and strength into one quick, final attack. Her eye is sharp and focused, seeing through his simple plan completely. Her hair whips around her as she moves with impossible speed and grace. She effortlessly sidesteps his charge and sends him flying with a powerful strike. Dazed and airborne, Ballad can only wonder what just happened to him. The impact of her wooden sword against his is powerful enough to shatter air. Watching from the sidelines, Sei screams her young master's name in terror. Ballad sits dazed against a tree, his sword embedded in it, as Selearn approaches. She declares the training over and warns him to be ready for their next session. Steam pours from Ballad's head as Sei fusses over him, thankful it's finally over. He calls out to Sei, who turns to him with a look of concern. He looks out at the world with a weary grin, asking if it's not great to be alive. Later, Count Cornelius announces that he has Ballad's allowance for the month. Ballad's face explodes in pure, manic joy at the sight of a single silver coin. Count Ignis hands Ballad his allowance, telling him not to squander it. A tiny Ballad dances away, singing about the sparkle of his new coin. His maid, Sei, appears with her arms crossed, her expression stern and disapproving. She tells him his greedy expression as he rubs the coin is truly appalling. Sei reminds him with a shocked face that she has asked him to stop countless times. He exclaims his love for the coin's cold sensation, ignoring her completely. A horrified Sei worries that at this rate, her young master is going down the wrong path. She believes she must do anything she can to correct his misguided behavior. Sei longs for the days when he was just a cute and honest child. She clenches her fist, declaring that she is the only one who can fix this. But when she turns to lecture him, she finds that he has already vanished. She spots him escaping, already halfway out of a tall manor window. With an apologetic smile, Ballad says that he will be off now. He runs away, promising to listen later as she yells for him to wait. Fuming, Sei promises that a punishment will be waiting for him when he returns. The scene shifts to the bustling town square, filled with people and market stalls. Ballad sees his friend, Taurus, waving to him from across the square. Taurus greets him enthusiastically, saying he was awaiting the arrival of Lord Ballad. Ballad apologizes for his lateness, blaming his persistent maid for the delay. The two boys excitedly agree to head off to their secret base together. They arrive at a vast, open field with a small shack on a hill. Ballad stands proudly with Taurus, declaring that the view is simply splendid. The camera pans over a large, fenced-in field filled with rows of leafy crops. Two other children working in the field spot them and call out to Lord Ballad. Margot and Porco excitedly show off the massive root vegetables they have grown. Ballad greets his friends, pleased to see the crops have grown so well. His expression turns serious as he closely inspects one of the large vegetables. The children ask if it's true that the roots taste too horrible to eat. Ballad agrees, admitting they would be if one were to eat them as they are. The children look on in confusion, asking what he plans on doing with them. A sly grin appears on Ballad's face, flanked by his two spectral companions. He asks his excited friends if they would like to know what this is. He reveals to them that the large, pale root is called a sugar beet. This, he says, is the first step, as his friends note his evil look. With a confident wink, he tells them they will see after he boils it. The chapter begins, showing Ballad with the spectral forms of Maseru and Satoshi. The children taste the resulting syrup, their faces exploding with pure, sweet delight. They are amazed, asking how he managed to create real sugar from the plants. They marvel that he made sugar just by boiling these supposedly worthless potatoes. Taurus is amazed by the result, and Ballad declares his plan will definitely work. The narration explains that sugar from sugarcane is a rare commodity on this continent. Fruit is the only common sweetener, so sugar beets would be extremely popular. Ballad clenches his fist, realizing he can earn an immense amount of money. He fantasizes about drowning in a mountain of gold, egged on by his inner souls. The narration explains the reason for Ballad's obsession with money at only 11. It is due to the influence of one of the two souls inside him. Specifically, it is the influence of the warlord Okusanai, Satoshi. After his death, the commander was known more for the wealth he amassed. As a merchant and moneylender, he saved constantly to become incredibly rich. The narration hints that greed was not his only sinful habit that Ballad inherited. His friends watch, thinking he must be contemplating some complex problem. In truth, he is just agonizing over how he will drown in all his money. He snaps out of his daydream with a determined grunt. He swears his friends to secrecy, calling it a test of their future loyalty. The three children eagerly agree, promising not to worry about a thing. He leaves the harvesting to his new recruits and heads off on his next errand. Ballad runs through a dark, narrow alleyway in the busy part of town. He makes his way through the bustling crowds of the main market street. He arrives at a storefront with a prominent sign reading Sovereign Company. An overhead view shows the layout of the town's commercial district. Ballad peeks through the door of the shop, asking if money is being made. The company president, Selena, a therianthrope, cheerfully replies, more or less. She welcomes him into her office, which is cluttered with crates and supplies. She slyly wags her tail, and Ballad confirms that her guess was correct. He presents a small pouch, telling her to try the prototype inside. Selena's face lights up with pure bliss as she tastes the incredible sweetness. Ballad declares he likes this sugar more, which only confuses Selena. He explains he wants to make sugar their domain specialty and must move fast. Selena winks, asking if he wants to leave all the marketing to her. He eagerly agrees, then immediately demands to touch her ears, annoying her. She yanks his cheek hard, asking if he really thinks she is that cheap. He clarifies that he wasn't just going to leave the marketing to her. He wants to use her company's name while he controls the flow of capital. Selena looks up, completely bewildered, asking what he is even talking about. He lays out his simple proposal. He invests, she sells, for a 20% cut. She immediately counters his offer, demanding a full 30% for her services. Leaning over the table, she argues her company is essential to his dream. With a triumphant grin, Selena declares victory as Ballad grits his teeth. Her expression turns serious as she considers what he might do next. He agrees to her 30%, but only on the condition that he can touch her ears. Selena is completely flabbergasted by his bizarre and unexpected request. She tries to calm herself, reasoning that 30% is a fantastic deal. Ballad leans in expectantly as she struggles with her momentous decision. Finally, she covers her face, agreeing to just a little touch. Ballad gently reaches out his hand, announcing that he will now proceed. The moment his fingers make contact, his eyes go wide with utter shock. The sensation is indescribable, a perfect fluffiness that clings to him. He raises a fist, having finally found the answer to the dog versus cat ear debate. Declaring he can't hold back, he lunges forward to embrace the fluffiness. Selena roars at him not to get carried away as she lands a powerful punch. He crashes into a crate as she fumes that she only agreed to a little. She looks down at the defeated boy with a disapproving huff. Ballad performs a perfect bow of apology, admitting it was all his fault. He celebrates his victory, knowing he now has permission to enjoy the fluffiness. Rorona, a clerk, enters the room, asking what all the commotion was about. She politely greets young Master Ballad as Selena looks on, mortified. Rorona offers to lower their share to 20% in exchange for more information. Ballad, sweating nervously, asks if she is truly fine with taking such a risk. She assures him they will carefully assess whether the risk is worth it. Ballad gives a deadpan look, realizing he was almost tricked into revealing his secrets. The clerk's eyes narrowed, a glint of shrewd calculation within them. She calmly assured him they would never steal a valued client's business. Ballad, flustered, nearly agreed to her smooth and tempting words. He quickly realized the discount wasn't worth revealing his secrets. Rorona then explained the deep cultural trust involved in touching ears. She teased Selena, doubting she would mind the attention too much. Ballad groaned, realizing the gravity of his frivolous actions. Shifting focus, he gave his first order to get the business started. He instructed them to use the profits to buy a certain item. The scene changes, showing the tall towers of the Cornelius Manor. Ballad cheerfully walked through the main door, announcing he was home. Say greeted him with an unervingly wide and serene smile. Her calm broke as she shook him, demanding to know where he was. Dizzy from the shaking, Ballad tried to calm his furious maid. Say puffed out her cheeks, still simmering with righteous anger. He bowed deeply, offering a sincere apology and promising to tell her. She gave him a suspicious side-eye, not entirely convinced. She sternly warned him never to sneak off like that again. As she lectured, Ballad considered bringing her into his secret plans. She snapped at him, demanding to know if he was even listening. A new chapter begins, showing two warriors ready to face off. At the training grounds, Selearn announced it was time for some fun. Ballad groaned, showing no enthusiasm for their brutal skinship. Selearn declared a change of plans, having had a great idea. She cheerfully announced that they would be having guests join them. A bad feeling washed over Ballad at the mention of guests. Selearn proudly presented her main guest, the legendary General Raml. Ballad and Say were completely shocked by the general's sudden appearance. Selearn explained Raml was her old superior and would help train him. The general recalled Selearn's fearsome reputation as Silver Light Magot. Ballad muttered to himself that he knew this couldn't be good. A foot stepped forward as another guest made their presence known. His childhood friend, Teresa Bradford, had arrived to challenge him. Her eyes narrowed with determination as she vowed to defeat him. Say let out a small shriek of surprise at the sudden appearance. Teresa smoothly presented Say with a rose, complimenting her beauty. She declared that the maid's cold attitude was another charming point. A terrified Say turned to her master, pleading for him to save her. The scene devolved into a childish squabble as Ballad intervened. Selearn roared for the nonsense to stop, clapping her hands sharply. Teresa taunted Ballad, asking why he wasn't using his preferred spear. He cheekily replied that he couldn't go too hard on her. Their eyes locked in a fierce stare as the duel was called to start. The match began with an explosive clash of their training swords. Ballad expertly parried a flurry of Teresa's rapid attacks. Watching from the side, General Ramles was mildly surprised. Ballad went on the offensive, forcing Teresa to block his heavy blow. She grunted from the force of the impact, barely holding her ground. Ramles noted that while she'd improved, her skill was not enough. The two fighters stood apart, contemplating their next moves. Teresa panted heavily, realizing she needed to change her tactics. A dark, powerful aura of magic began to swirl around her. Ramles correctly identified the spell as body-strengthening magic. She launched herself forward, propelled by a burst of magical energy. Ballad's eyes widened in shock at her incredible burst of speed. Her blade sliced through the air, aimed for a finishing blow. A massive impact kicked up a cloud of dust and debris. Teresa's eyes were wide with triumph, believing she had won. But Ballad had dropped low, sweeping her legs out from under her. He stood over her defeated form as she lay sprawled on the ground. Selearn raised her hand, calling an end to the match. Lying on the ground, Teresa called out Ballad's name weakly. She pointed at him, vowing to beat him in their next fight. Ballad just smiled warmly and said he was sure she would. Selearn commented that she couldn't have won against him anyway. She turned to the general, asking for his assessment of Ballad. She puffed out a breath, awaiting his expert opinion. Ramles stated Ballad's pure skill was rare even among elite knights. A wide, predatory grin spread across the general's face. He loomed over Ballad, his powerful aura flaring as he issued a challenge. Ballad broke into a cold sweat, pleading for him to go easy. The two warriors faced each other as Selearn watched from the side. Selearn beamed, telling her son not to even think about losing. Ballad whimpered that of course he wouldn't dare, mother. With a call to start, the two fighters took their stances. General Ramles' expression was grim and utterly focused. Ballad was already sweating, feeling the immense pressure from his opponent. The fight began with a powerful shockwave that shook the ground. Ballad's eyes were wide with shock at the general's incredible speed. He was immediately put on the defensive, parrying a heavy blow. The overwhelming force of the general's attack was plain to see. Ramles was impressed that the boy could dodge without using magic. Ballad asked if this move would finally get him to fight seriously. The fight became a blur of motion, a whirlwind of clashing swords. Ballad desperately blocked, still begging the general to go easy. Ramles taunted him, saying it wasn't hard to face an old man. Ballad strained, barely holding back a devastating overhead strike. The sheer force of the blow sent him skidding across the ground. Gritting his teeth, he managed to hold his ground against the attack. He planted his foot, preparing to launch a powerful counter. A burst of energy erupted as he kicked off the ground. A dark aura of body-strengthening magic flared to life around him. Ramles grimaced, recognizing the magical enhancement. Ballad let out a fierce battle cry as he lunged forward. He charged at his opponent with blinding, magic-fueled speed. Ramles calmly read the boy's attack, anticipating his target. He correctly identified Ballad's aim as his pivoting leg. The general noted the boy's impressive quickness. However, he dismissed the simple tactic as being far too obvious. Ramles swung his sword down, preparing to end the match. Ballad's face is a mask of pure desperation and effort. General Ramles brings his heavy, training sword down for the final blow. The young boy believes that it is all over for him now. Suddenly, the general's confident expression twists into one of utter shock. The solid ground beneath his feet cracks and gives way. "What?" he cries out, his powerful stance completely broken. He realizes in disbelief that the ground has been turned into sand. With his opponent off balance, Ballad's hand shoots out to grab him. In a blur of motion, he begins to execute a powerful throw. A fierce battle cry erupts from the boy's mouth. Ramles can only grunt as his momentum is used against him. Ballad plants his foot firmly, using it as a perfect pivot point. The giant general is sent flying, crashing hard onto his back. A massive cloud of dust explodes from the point of impact. A voice from the crowd can only mutter, "Oh boy." Ramles laughs heartily, admitting the boy has him beat. He marvels at the clever use of earth magic as Ballad looks on, embarrassed. Ballad lets out a flustered puff of air, caught off guard by the praise. His mother Selearn appears, remarking on what a close call it was. She then lectures him to aim for the groin next time. Say rushes to check on him, while Teresa praises his amazing wit. Ramles realizes the boy could influence the entire country's fate. Good grief, he sighs, truly impressed by the child's potential. The scene dissolves into chaos as Teresa gleefully pesters Ballad and Say. Ballad later approaches a small, rustic workshop on the edge of town. The wooden door to the building creaks open. Inside, the master craftsman Gort decides to take a short break. Ballad's voice calls out, asking if he is the craftsman here. Gort turns, gruffly asking what the kid wants from him. The boy just stands in the doorway, offering a disarming smile. He asks if this is the workshop of the renowned Master Gort. Gort scoffs, saying flattery won't get him anything for free. Ballad adds that people also say his color sense is off. The enraged craftsman tries to kick him out, but Ballad is calm. He insists that he has a proposal that will interest Gort. The chapter page shows Selena and Say, two key women in his life. Ballad arrives at the impressive stone building of the Sovereign Company. Inside, Selena is ecstatic about how well the sugar is selling. Her clerk, Rorona, worries the secret of its origin won't last. Selena reveals she has already invested in 5 hectares of new land. She winks, brushing it off as a simple investment for the future. Ballad, impressed, asks how much his cut of the profits will be. Selena offers 30%, as she is the one taking on the risk. He jokes that he can't complain if he can touch her fluffy ears. Rorona teases that he'll have to marry the president if he persists. Ballad immediately drops to the floor in a formal, sincere apology. Rorona then moves on to their other business, addressing Lord Ballad. She reveals they have procured all the cheap gold or he requested. Selena assumes he will just use it for some simple crafting. He confirms it is for crafting, though not in the way she imagines. He reaches behind his back, preparing to reveal a sample he made. He presents a stunning, intricately detailed flower-shaped hair ornament. Selena and Rorona are both left speechless by its beauty. Selena estimates it could be sold to a noble for 200 gold coins. Ballad grins, revealing it cost less than half a gold coin to make. The two women corner him, demanding an explanation for the impossible cost. He explains that the item is not solid gold, but merely gilded. It is just a simple bronze item that has been coated in gold. Selena points out that traditional gilding is just as expensive as solid gold. Ballad agrees that fire gilding would be, but he has another way. He gives a sly wink, telling them he has a far simpler method. The realization of an incredible new business opportunity dawns on them. Selena and Rorona share a look of pure, unadulterated ambition. Selena erupts in a fiery vow, ready to show them a merchant's spirit. Rorona cheers her on, exclaiming that the president is truly fired up. Ballad returns once more to Gort's humble workshop. He calls out cheerfully, asking the craftsman how things are coming along. Gort greets the young master with a wide, welcoming grin. He proudly reports that he has finished the first 20 bronze bases. A wooden tray is filled with the beautifully crafted, unplated ornaments. Gort expresses his sincere gratitude for the opportunity. Ballad looks on with a completely deadpan expression. He internally complains that Gort's pronunciation sounds like he's calling him a fool. Gort asks what it was that the young master wanted to show him. Ballad presents a set of jars and a basin, calling it a power source. Gort is confused, seeing only pottery, not any kind of magic tools. Ballad carefully connects the jars and the basin with a copper wire. The craftsman watches the strange preparations with a quizzical look. Ballad proudly holds up one of the bronze ornaments. Gort recognizes it as one he sold, confused by the small gold piece. Ignoring Gort's protests, Ballad drops the ornament into the basin. He puts a finger to his lips, telling the frantic craftsman to just wait. Gort stares in shock as the liquid begins to bubble on its own. A short while later, his shock turns to a scream of pure disbelief. The ornament is now plated in a brilliant, shining layer of gold. Ballad can only laugh, admitting he can't exactly explain how it works. With a sly look, he asks Gort if he would like to try more. The craftsman points, still trying to process what he has just witnessed. He begins nodding his head vigorously, eagerly agreeing to the new venture. Ballad says he looks forward to working with him on this project. He delivers a heavy sack of gold or to the workshop. He assures Gort there will be plenty more, or as he finishes more pieces. Gort is humbled, feeling this is far more than he deserves. He vows with newfound determination to finish the work by month's end. Ballad is delighted, though he tells the craftsman there's no rush. He muses on how much they'll sell for, stoking Gort's own ambition. Ballad is overcome with joy, realizing his goal of immense wealth is within reach. A single, triumphant thought echoes across the sky. Hooray for cheating! The source of the magic is revealed. The jars were primitive Baghdad batteries. In his past life, Masaru's nerdy mind memorized it all from a TV show. A flashback reveals Masaru's past success with a home electroplating experiment. 6 months later, a loud crash is heard from the sovereign company. A portly merchant is seen sprawled on the ground, having been thrown out. His companions curse the tight-lipped woman who controls the mysterious Gort's work. The Gort collection is a massive success, coveted by nobles for its quality and price. The disgruntled merchants retreat, vowing that she will pay for this humiliation. Inside, Selena complains about the constant pestering for an introduction to Gort. She worries aloud to Rorona that desperate rivals might soon resort to abduction. Suddenly, she bursts into laughter, finding their success, thanks to Ballad, hilarious. Rorona dryly hopes her president's hubris doesn't incur some form of divine punishment. Their conversation is interrupted by a visitor who excuses herself as she enters. Selena's internal monologue screams that this arrival is her one and only miscalculation. The visitor is Ballad's maid, Say, a person Selena views as a great miscalculation. Selena asks about Ballad, and Say claims he is busy supervising a construction site. Selena internally calls her a liar, knowing Say is just keeping Ballad away. Say requests quicklime and volcanic ash for Ballad's Roman concrete project. Selena agrees to prepare the order, telling Say to pass the message along. With a sly grin, Selena declares that she will count this as a personal favor. Say calmly shuts her down, stating she heard nothing about such an arrangement. Thwarted, Selena climbs her chair, looming over Say as Rorona watches, amused. Selena vows to collect her payment personally, while Say resolves to stop her. Rorona smiles sweetly, flanked by the menacing silhouettes of the two rivals. An arc of lightning flashes between them as they silently declare each other an enemy. Miles away, Ballad shivers, wondering if he might be coming down with a cold. The chapter cover shows a tough-looking mercenary woman forcing a drink on someone. The scene shifts to the imposing fortress of Marquis Selvi in the Maishia Kingdom. The stone walls of the castle stand tall under a gray, foreboding sky. Inside, a man asks his aide, Dorn, to confirm the accuracy of a report. Dorn states that while the report is not yet complete, the information is correct. A powerful fist slams down onto a wooden desk, cracking the surface. Marquis Selvi demands to know how the broke Cornelius domain is suddenly prospering. He seethes at the rumors of a new sugar source and the Gort collection. He cannot believe that moron Cornelius is suddenly skilled at anything besides war. Selvi concludes there must be a hidden element they are not aware of. He roars in frustration, as this unforeseen development has delayed his invasion plans. The Selvi family hold a deep grudge against the Cornelius family for past losses. A map reveals the Cornelius domain is the only viable invasion route into Mauritia. The constant conflicts were a strategy to keep Cornelius financially weak for revenge. Selvi realizes that at this rate, Cornelius will rearm his forces and become a threat. Dorn grimly acknowledges that they may end up being the ones who are conquered. Selvi orders Dorn to find out what is happening, no matter the cost. Dorn understands that this mission may require them to take drastic measures. Selvi, his face a mask of rage, confirms that drastic measures are authorized. With a bow, Dorn accepts the grave command from his lord. He walks down a long, stone corridor, accompanied by a young attendant. Dorn muses that Cornelius's growth confirms the involvement of a hidden hand. Back in his study, Selvi contemplates how to uncover the truth. He strokes his chin, lost in deep, strategic thought. He decides they will need to investigate behind the scenes to find answers. He orders his aide to summon a man named Taurus to handle the mission. The story returns to the bustling castle town of the Cornelius domain. A tavern sign hangs outside, depicting the silhouette of a rearing foal. The inside of the fire foal is loud and filled with rowdy patrons. A red-haired woman with bandages on her face chugs a massive tankard of ale. The other patrons watch her with a mixture of awe and amusement. She slams the empty wooden tankard down hard onto the table. With a great sigh of satisfaction, she lets out a joyful laugh. The bartender approaches, commenting on her impressive capacity for liquor. He correctly guesses she is a mercenary, which she says is part of the job. She laments that she can't find any work lately, calling it a pain. The patrons at the bar look on with sympathy at her predicament. She reassures them by pulling out a heavy pouch of coins. The end of the conflict with Aurelia has left all mercenaries jobless. She had come hoping for a favor from her sis, but is now at a loss. A footstep is heard as someone approaches her from behind. She looks up from her drink, surprised by the sudden interruption. A young Ballad stands before her, asking if she is a mercenary. He smiles politely as she continues to stare at him in silence. She finally asks the boy who he is, her expression wary. He politely introduces himself as Ballad Cornelius, the son of the domain's lord. The woman does a violent spit take, shocked to learn he is Miss Magat's son. She reveals that she and his mother were best friends on the battlefield. She introduces herself to the tavern as the mercenary Swift Wind Zerko. Zerko explains she came to ask his mother for help, but couldn't find her. Ballad tells her he actually has something he would like to ask of her. He offers her a job, promising to pay a salary of 5 gold per month. Zerko is left completely speechless by the sudden and very generous offer. They arrive at Ballad's secret base, a simple farm with a wooden shed. A closer view shows the plain wooden structure nestled among the trees. Ballad smiles nervously, sensing her growing disappointment with the location. Zerko, tapping her fingers, asks if he is perhaps trying to upset her. She confirms that she is, in fact, incredibly upset with the situation. She had been wondering what kind of grand mission he had in mind for such pay. She gestures dismissively towards the children working in the fields outside. The children are happily tending to the leafy green crops. She explodes in frustration, yelling that he's just hired her to guard playground. Ballad calmly admits that it only appears to be a playground. He smiles, revealing that this farm's true purpose is to produce sugar. Zerko is utterly shocked, unable to believe they are making sugar here. Ballad explains that people everywhere are desperately searching for their new methods. As a result, they have been getting more and more suspicious visitors lately. A flashback shows shady-looking men loitering in the streets of the town. Ballad says he has taken measures to deceive them and protect the farm's secret. He asks her to imagine what someone who dislikes their success might do. Zerko listens intently as Ballad lays out the political implications. A veteran of the border wars, she correctly guesses he means Aurelia. Ballad confirms her suspicions, specifically naming their neighbor, Marquis Selvi. Zerko grins, now understanding her real job is to deal with special agents. Ballad predicts that the enemy force will be no more than a dozen men. He believes they will come disguised as bandits to steal and abduct people. Ballad's eye glints with cold certainty, predicting the enemy's inevitable arrival. The mercenary Zerko freezes in disbelief, a bead of sweat on her face. She smirks, knowing the brutish wild boar, Selvi would resort to drastic measures. Scratching her head, she decides she might need to call upon some old friends. Zerko turns to her boss, asking permission to gather a larger fighting force. Ballad dismisses her question, intending to fight anyone who tries to steal from him. A demonic aura surrounds him as he vows to fight even the king himself. Far away, within Marquis Selvi's domain, a different plan is set in motion. Inside his office, the grim aide Dorn commands his visitor to come in. A cloaked figure enters the study, announcing his arrival to Sir Dorn. Dorn acknowledges his presence, stating that he has finally arrived for his mission. The man, Taurus Linebard, kneels as Dorn begins to state his need. Taurus looks up with fierce resolve, accepting the task before it is given. The scene shifts to Ballad happily making mayonnaise, much to Zerko's confusion. Back in the enemy fortress, Dorn tells the kneeling Taurus he needs him. Taurus insists there is no need to ask. He only requires the order. Dorn questions if his loyalty extends to even the dirtiest of jobs. Taurus confirms he was prepared for anything the moment he arrived. Dorn warns that failure means no rescue, leaving death as the only option. Taurus coldly decides he will only take unmarried men with him on this mission. His fatalistic pragmatism leaves Dorn momentarily speechless and unnerved. The aide looks down, sweating, contemplating the man's absolute resolve. Taurus apologizes for any trouble, his voice filled with a strange sincerity. He prostrates himself, declaring his immense debt to Dorn for past kindnesses. He sees this mission as his best chance to finally repay that debt. At a tavern called the Fireful, a new gathering takes place. The sounds of revelry fill the air as mercenaries drink and talk. Zerko blissfully enjoys the mayonnaise her new boss made, finding it delicious. She sighs in pure contentment, a fork held loosely in her hand. A large man approaches, teasing her about gaining weight since they last met. Zerko glares, warning him to say that again, and she will snap his neck. The man addresses the whole group of assembled mercenaries, his old comrades. The big man, Grimer, sarcastically calls her threat terrifying. Jamuka, a spiky-haired man, agrees to stay, noting the good food. The stoic Mistel agrees with a shrug that it can't be helped. A woman named Miranda defends Zerko, saying she is fine as she is. Another mercenary, the Silent Cell, simply scoffs in the background. Getting down to business, Zerko slams a hand on the table. Jamuka wonders what war they'll fight, while Cell suggests becoming thieves. Others are just glad for a paying job that isn't in the frozen north. Zerko is glad they were still nearby, as calling them from far away is pointless. Grimer demands an explanation for why they have all been gathered here. Zerko explains it is a simple farm guarding job for 3 gold a month. Jamuka erupts, declaring the pay is too little and demanding at least 5. Zerko reveals the farm is hiding an amusing secret, piquing their interest. With a sly wink, she asks what they would think if she said it's sugar. The mercenaries are utterly stunned, letting out a collective, disbelieving "huh." Jamuka gets in her face, demanding to know if this is some kind of joke. She insists it's no joke, explaining many are desperately seeking information. She reveals Lord Selvi is furious, which is why they have been hired. The promise of a 60 gold bonus for repelling Selvi's troops excites them. Jamuka, impressed by the generous pay, asks who their new employer is. The name Silverlight, Magat's son, sends a wave of terror through them. The entire table falls into a stunned, fearful silence. They ask in disbelief if it's serious, and Zerko confirms that it is. They ask again, and Zerko irritably tells them she already said yes. The scene shifts to the quiet farm, the future battlefield. A week passes, and Jamuka grows impatient with the lack of action. The farm children run and play, oblivious to the impending danger. He confronts Ballad, questioning if the enemy is really coming at all. Ballad poses a question about Selvi's history of petitioning for war. He concludes Selvi won't do nothing, handing the confused mercenary a skewer. Ballad smiles, reminding him of the domain's tight security. He predicts they will use the northern woods, an area only visited by hunters. He calls it the perfect place for a small group to infiltrate. Zerko points out the difficulty of fighting while also protecting the children. Ballad believes the children will only be targeted as a last resort. He confidently states that if things go wrong, they will just target him. Jamuka explodes, demanding to know how useful the brat can actually be. Zerko tries to intervene as Jamuka lunges toward the young master. The mercenary charges forward with incredible speed, determined to test the boy. Ballad easily meets his charge, blocking the powerful punch with his own. Jamuka smirks, unimpressed, and asks if that's all the kid has. Ballad's expression hardens, a dark aura flaring around him. Miranda shouts at Jamuka, telling him to look at his armor. Confused, Jamuka wonders what she's talking about as he starts to curse. His eyes widen as he finally notices something is terribly wrong. He looks down to find a roasted skewer embedded deep in his chest plate. Miranda explains Ballad stabbed him from a blind spot during the exchange. The cold realization hits him. Had it been a real blade, he would be dead. Jamuka clicks his tongue in annoyance, while Ballad offers a knowing smile. He throws his hands up, admitting defeat and vowing not to doubt him again. The others are amused by his surprisingly honest and dramatic concession. Just then, Jamuka's attention is caught by a commotion in the distance. A cloud of dust approaches as two women argue loudly over who should go. It's Sei and Selena, physically struggling as they argue about seeing Ballad. Selena breaks free, cheerfully presenting a basket to Ballad as Sei collapses. Jamuka asks what is in the basket Selena brought for the boss. Everyone gathers around, peering into the basket with curious smiles. Inside is a castella, a baked snack that looks absolutely delicious. Selena proudly accepts Ballad's compliment on her impressive cooking skills. Zerko, smelling the new food, eagerly demands a piece for herself. Ballad easily tames the mercenary with the promise of cake, preparing to slice it. Ballad thanks Selena, who offers to bring more treats in the future. Ballad's expression turns serious as he addresses both Sei and Selena. He warns them to stay away from the farm, as it's about to get dangerous. He cryptically explains they plan to exterminate a pack of stray dogs. They protest, insisting there is no need for him to go himself. Ballad stands firm, his mercenary guard behind him, insisting it is necessary. They shout their final, worried pleas for him to be safe on his mission. Selena firmly rejects Ballad's proposal, her face a mask of comical frustration. She shouts that it's none of his business, as Zerko muses on his popularity. Suddenly, the piercing clang of an alarm bell shocks everyone into silence. Ballad realizes with dread that the northern alarm is sooner than he expected. In the northern woods, a group of figures moves with practiced speed. Cloaked and hooded, they press onward through the dense forest undergrowth. Their leader, Taurus, looks back at his men and commands them to advance. Miles away, Selearn watches the border, noting that nothing seems to have changed. Yet, an unshakable bad feeling persists, and she doesn't understand why. She begins to wonder if her legendary battlefield intuition is finally growing dull. Back in the woods, the cloaked invaders continue their relentless, silent march. They move with stealth between the ancient trees and gnarled roots. One of the men stumbles, showing the strain of the long journey. Another adjusts his hood, his expression grim and resolute. Taurus urges them on, promising that their destination is close. He acknowledges their exhaustion is natural after marching through day and night. He finds great relief in knowing that Silver Light Magat is patrolling elsewhere. Clenching his fist, he vows not to let this rare opportunity escape. He signals his men forward as they creep through the tall grass. His eyes narrow, his senses on high alert for any sign of ambush. Suddenly, he deflects a volley of knives with a flash of his sword. He glares at his attacker, a blade embedded harmlessly in his pauldron. The ambusher, one of Zerko's mercenaries, points towards them, shouting a warning. The mercenary, Sel, stands ready, wielding 2 daggers with surprising skill. Taurus acknowledges that his opponent is more skilled than he had expected, but as Sel falls, he mutters that he has earned his 10 gold. Taurus is momentarily confused by the mercenary's cryptic last words. He steps over the fallen body of his defeated opponent. One of his men reports that the enemy's blades were coated in paralyzing poison. He stands over the immobilized Sel, asking for any last words. Sel defiantly tells Taurus to just get it over with. Taurus quietly agrees, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. His blade falls in a swift, final arc, ending the mercenary's life. The scene fades, marking the first casualty of the invasion. Taurus reminds his men of their grim duty, death before capture. His knights agree, stating they already know the harsh stakes of their mission. They realize the warning whistle means their presence is now known. Taurus concludes that there is no longer any need for them to hide. He gives the command, and his men charge forward into the open. They burst from the tree-line, storming across the sugar beet fields. Zerko orders Ballad to get the children and the girls to safety. She rallies her mercenaries, shouting that the enemy numbers 12. Miranda scoffs, believing that such a small force is underestimating them. Zerko gives the order for Miranda to provide them with covering fire. Miranda confidently replies to leave it to her as she draws her bow. She takes a knee, preparing to unleash a devastating volley of arrows. A deadly shower of broad-headed arrows rains down from the sky. The arrows find their marks, striking the charging knights with lethal force. One of the invaders cries out as multiple arrows pierce his back. Another grits his teeth, managing to deflect a shot with his sword. Zerko commands her men to hold the line and stop the attackers. Taurus watches the main battle, his focus fixed on his true target. His gaze is locked on Ballad's fleeing group. His objective is clear. He spots them, a clear line of sight to his primary targets. The mercenaries are locked in a fierce melee with the remaining knights. Zerko and her comrades fight desperately, trying to force the invaders back. The clash of steel echoes as the two forces collide in brutal combat. One of the knights grimly wishes his comrades luck in the next life. His comrade agrees, hoping they can drink together again as comrades. A single knight breaks through the mercenary line, charging forward. Zerko screams in horror, realizing this was their plan from the start. She desperately shouts for Ballad to hold on as her men fight on. Ballad realizes his grave error in not taking Selvi seriously enough. He expected mere mercenaries, but this man is on the level of a knight. He curses his own pride for putting everyone in such grave danger. He vows that, at the very least, he will keep them safe. Taurus calmly tells Ballad to come quietly to avoid getting hurt. Ballad defiantly declares that he will not let them be taken. Taurus prepares to attack, his cloak billowing around his powerful frame. Ballad's eyes narrow with fierce, unwavering determination. Taurus lunges, roaring that he will simply have to defeat the boy. Ballad dodges the swift attack, moving with surprising agility. Taurus's eyes widen in surprise as his sword misses its mark. A stone, imbued with magic, hurtles directly towards his face. The magical stone explodes in a blinding flash of light on impact. Taurus recoils in pain, cursing the boy for using magic against him. He laments his failure, having lost his sight to such a simple trick. He decides he must take the boy down, abandoning his plan for capture. His vision clears, his eyes burning with renewed, deadly intent. He smashes his fist into the ground, enraged by the boy's clever tactics. He notes that Ballad is aiming for his feet, a fatal blow for an intelligence mission. He admits the strategy would be victorious if Ballad were commander. He tells the stunned Ballad that he is not a commander. His opponent, he declares with chilling finality, is him. He unleashes a devastating overhead strike with all of his might. The force of the blow sends Ballad flying backward into the dirt. Say and Selena scream his name, their faces masks of pure horror. Taurus stands over his defeated foe, believing he has done it. He notes that Ballad would have been decapitated without his magical block. Though the sacrifice saved his life, he declares Ballad can't fight anymore. Ballad lies broken, whispering that it's over, his eyes wide with despair. Say and Selena rush towards his motionless form, crying his name. Before they can reach him, Taurus intercepts them, his cloak billowing. He grabs both women, hoisting them over his shoulder to abduct them. They struggle, screaming for him to let them go, but he is resolute. Their desperate pleas for Ballad to save them echo across the field. On the ground, Ballad's hand twitches, a single finger moving with effort. A chilling, dark presence suddenly emanates from the fallen boy. Taurus freezes, a strange and terrifying feeling washing over him. A new voice whispers from Ballad's lips, remarking on the nice breeze. A terrifying, bloodthirsty grin spreads across the boy's face, promising violence. Taurus glances back, his expression one of pure, instinctual shock and fear. His face shrouded in shadow, Ballad asks for his women to be returned. The three souls of Ballad stand together on the chapter's title page. Across the field, the brutal battle between mercenaries and knights rages on. Jamuka lets out a mighty roar as he parries a powerful blow. His face contorted with effort, he bellows for his opponent to come on. The scarred knight glares back, his own blade held steady for the next clash. Jamuka quickly dodges a heavy downward swing that smashes into the ground. The knight's shield easily blocks Jamuka's follow-up attack, holding the line firm. Jamuka lands a solid punch, staggering the knight with the unexpected blow. The knight cries out in pain as the force of the punch connects. An arrow suddenly thuds into the knight's shield, providing a crucial interruption. Miranda lets out a sigh of relief as Jamuka yells at her to stay out. Four cloaked knights form an intimidating and seemingly unbreakable defensive wall. Their leader vows that no matter what, the mercenaries will not get past them. Zerko curses their persistence, knowing they can't afford to be delayed here. She knows that Taurus is the strongest enemy, the true key to this battle. Though their boss is tough, she thinks he is still just a kid. She wants to help him, but admits finishing her own fight is proving difficult. Zerko decides she may need to formulate an escape plan, apologizing to her boss. Her own life, she concludes, must be her absolute first priority. In his mind, Ballad's defeated body falls through an endless, dark void. He feels helpless, unable to move his limbs as his friends are taken away. He laments his failure to protect them, wondering if this is his end. Lying in the grass, his eyes are wide with utter shock and despair. Within the void of his consciousness, two figures appear before his fading form. Oka Maseru furiously demands to know why he is just lying around. Satoshi grins, asking why he won't fight such a great opponent. In the real world, Ballad's eyes snap wide open with a new light. Satoshi declares that this is the moment a warrior's heart truly trembles. An aura of raw power crackles around Ballad as he rises to his feet. Taurus, holding Selena, turns to see the boy has somehow stood up again. He is shocked, wondering how the boy managed to get back on his feet. Sei screams for her young master to run, begging him not to push himself. Ballad grins, thanking the gods for granting him another chance at a battlefield. His posture transforms, becoming that of a seasoned and confident warrior. His shattered arm hangs limply at his side, completely ignored in his focus. With his eyes aglow, he commands his opponent to come and face him. Taurus, unnerved by the sudden change, demands to know the boy's name. With a predator's grin, the boy introduces himself as Okasanai Satoshi. Sei can only whisper, "Oak," as she watches the impossible transformation. She and Selena look on. Their faces a mixture of terror and confusion. Taurus scoffs, saying he'll remember the names the girls were screaming instead. He drops Selena and stalks forward to face the boy on the open field. Taurus notes the boy only has a knife, wondering what his plan could be. He assumes the boy can't move, but his knightly pride stops him from leaving. He roars that as a knight, he cannot ignore such a direct provocation. With a battle cry, he declares his attack and charges forward with intent. Their blades meet in a flash of steel, the small knife parrying the sword. Satoshi Ballad holds his ground, his expression one of intense, focused calm. Taurus presses his attack, swinging his blade with immense power and speed. Satoshi Ballad's face is a mask of concentration as he parries the heavy blow. The two warriors stand opposite each other, locked in a deadly, silent duel. Taurus is stunned, thinking it's like he's facing a completely different person. The inexperienced boy is gone, replaced by a warrior with no wasted movements. They circle each other, blades ready, searching for the slightest opening. Satoshi Ballad grins, asking his opponent if this feeling isn't great. His mind drifts to a past battlefield, remembering the desire to live or die. He knows those in peace can't understand the fun of fighting for your life. His face is a mask of manic joy as he invites the young on to have fun. The battle resumes in a blur of motion, their speeds equally matched. The sound of their footsteps echoes as they close the distance in an instant. Taurus leaps forward, his long sword raised for a powerful, cleaving strike. Satoshi Ballad meets the blow with his small knife, creating a massive shockwave. He holds the blade back, his grip firm, his eyes locked on his opponent. The clash of their weapons explodes in a shower of sparks and raw energy. Taurus's face is a rictus of manic excitement, caught up in the thrill. Satoshi Ballad mirrors his expression, his own face alight with battle lust. Taurus admits this is the first time winning a battle would feel like a waste. Satoshi Ballad agrees with him, his own excitement palpable. His tone shifts, however, as he prepares to bring the duel to an end. He roars that the fight ends now, lunging forward in a final charge. Ballad's eyes widen in feigned shock as his attack appears to be stopped. Taurus's eye is wide with triumph as he catches his opponent's arm. His hand clamps down firmly on Satoshi Ballad's knife-wielding wrist. He successfully stops the blade, believing he has won the fight. His victorious grin is cut short by a sudden, horrifying realization. Satoshi Ballad whispers that his opponent's move was naive. He swings his other, shattered arm around in a brutal, unexpected arc. Taurus looks on in pure shock as the broken limb strikes his side. Satoshi Ballad commends the young man on a well-fought duel. With a satisfied smile, he declares that war truly is fun. The jagged bones of his arm are embedded deep in Taurus's unprotected side. Taurus admits with his last breath that it was a fun occasion. He collapses to the ground, defeated, as Satoshi Ballad stands over him. Taurus acknowledges that it was a brilliant fight indeed before he dies. Satoshi Ballad's broken blade clatters to the ground beside his feet. He looks down at his own hand, a flicker of confusion on his face. The adrenaline fades, and he realizes his body's terrible condition isn't good. The warrior's aura dissipates as he sways on his feet from exhaustion. With his final ounce of strength, he decides to leave the rest to the young ones before collapsing to the ground himself. Zerko screams in disbelief, realizing that their boss somehow won the fight. The remaining knights are horrified, unable to believe that Taurus has died. They know without their leader, they have no chance of succeeding. With only one option left, they prepare to show the spirit of a knight. Zerko rallies her mercenaries, ordering them not to let a single one escape. The loss of Taurus took a heavy toll on the morale of the knights. With their will broken, they no longer had the strength to resist the mercenaries. The last of the enemy knights is cut down in a spray of debris. Riddled with arrows, the final invaders fall, dying for their cause. The mercenary archer, Miranda, smirks confidently as she readies another shot. Before dusk, the battle was over, the knights completely annihilated. Say and Selena kneel over Ballad, desperately pleading for him to hold on. Tears stream down their faces as they cry out his name in anguish. Ballad lies unconscious, his face pale and sweaty from the ordeal. Selena sobs with relief that Ballad is alive as Say weeps beside her. Zerko arrives, cheerfully declaring that all is great since the boss survived. Say rises, her face shadowed, coldly questioning Zerko's choice of words. Her face contorts in pure rage as she screams that nothing is great. A terrified Zerko can only stammer a weak and confused apology. The mercenaries quickly begin fashioning a stretcher to get him to a doctor. The sound of an approaching carriage heralds an arrival at the Cornelius estate. Selearn storms into the manor, annoyed her son hasn't come to greet her. The household maids freeze in terror upon seeing their furious madam. They stammer nervously, try to explain the terrible news about Ballad. They finally tell her that something awful has happened to the young master. The chapter page shows a profile of Say, her expression grim and determined. The Cornelius estate was thrown into an uproar over Ballad's serious injuries. Ballad lies in bed, heavily bandaged, surrounded by a healer and maids. Numerous hooded healers were summoned to his side to mend his broken body. Selena used her company's resources to supply the best medicine available. Her face is a mask of desperate urgency as she shouts commands. Through it all, Say maintains her constant, tireless vigil by his bedside. A fist clenches in worry, blood dripping from the immense pressure. The headmaid approaches the exhausted Say, calling her name with concern. She tells Say that she has not been sleeping and needs to get some rest. She warns that at this rate, the young maid will surely collapse. Say insists she is fine, needing something to focus on in this crisis. She knew Selearn would lose her mind if she couldn't help nurse him. 3 days later, in the morning, Say sits at his bedside, quietly crying. Ballad finally awakens, asking his devoted maid if she is crying. Hearing his voice, Say looks up, her eyes wide with shock and relief. She throws herself onto him, overcome by a powerful wave of emotion. Sobbing his name over and over, she clutches him tightly in her arms. He winces in pain, but pats her head, reassuring her that he is all right. She pulls back for a moment, her tear-streaked face showing utter confusion. She buries her face against him again, her body racked with relieved sobs. Ballad looks onward, letting out a small, weary sigh of his own. He looks out the window, quietly thanking Say for being there for him. The scene shifts to a separate, unused villa on the Cornelius estate. Inside, a mercenary asks Zerko why she has gathered them here. She explains it's a convenient, unused storage room where they can talk. The mercenaries look terrified as she says it's a place to be loud. Selearn appears, greeting Zerko by her old, intimidating battlefield moniker. She stands over them, demanding to know who is responsible for her son's state. Selearn laughs, musing that those bastards are truly looking down on her. Her smile widens into a terrifying grin as she asks if they want to fight. Zerko jokes that Ballad's opponent could have matched Selearn in 10 years. Selearn smiles sweetly, asking if Zerko simply left Ballad to face him. Zerko panics, realizing her mistake as her comrades curse her idiocy. Selearn asks if they were just a distraction, suggesting they need more training. The mercenaries collectively realize with pure horror that they are now dead. Selearn acknowledges a mercenary's first duty is to stay alive. But if Ballad had died, she would have hunted Zerko down to kill her. Zerko sweats, knowing Selearn has seen through her plan to abandon him. Gripping a wooden plank, Selearn says she must first punish her stupid son. But as his subordinates, she declares they also require punishment. The mercenaries erupt in pleas for mercy, asking what the punishment is. Selearn beams, telling them to just be happy that they're still alive. The mercenaries are drenched in sweat, their faces masks of pure terror. The scene shifts from the villa back to the main Cornelius Manor. A recovered Ballad, still bandaged, looks on with a grim expression. He stands before the imposing double doors of his father's study. Taking a deep breath, he steels himself for the judgment that awaits. He announces his presence before entering the room to face his father. Count Cornelius acknowledges his arrival without turning from the window. Ballad sees his father's rigid, tense posture and prepares for the worst. The Count, his eyes closed, coldly commands his son to come closer. Ballad nervously agrees and steps forward to face his father's wrath. Without warning, Count Cornelius turns and strikes his son across the face. He stands over the fallen boy, asking if he understands why he was hit. Ballad, clutching his cheek, quietly affirms that he understands completely. The Count reveals he knew of Selvi's interference for the past 2 months. Ballad explains his pride and his desire to keep the farm secret. His father scoffs, asking if Selvi's minion was truly that weak. Ballad admits his opponent was the first person besides his mother to best him. The Count's expression is severe as he asks if Ballad grasps the consequences. He reminds Ballad that his friends would have been taken and his men killed. He notes it was pure coincidence that the 2 women were even there. Worse, the children working on the farm could have been slaughtered. He lectures Ballad on the noble duty to protect the people of the land. He tells his son that he lacks the pride and resolution for that duty. Ballad looks down, ashamed, accepting his father's harsh but true words. The Count explains he had been considering a course of action for some time. He announces his plan to enroll Ballad in the Royal Knight School next month. There, he can learn the pride and conviction that a noble truly needs. As he is dismissed, Ballad stops, stating he has 2 requests to make. He asks his father to take over the farm and ensure the children are safe. The Count agrees, assuring him that Selvi will no longer touch them. His second request is to protect the sovereign company, vital for their realm. His father agrees to both, asking if that is all he has to say. As Ballad turns to leave, his father says there is one last thing. He suddenly pulls his son into a fierce, powerful, and unexpected embrace. His stern facade breaks as he whispers that he's glad Ballad is alive. Ballad is stunned, looking over his father's shoulder and muttering, "Dad." The narration explains that Ballad's tears began to pour like a burst dam. He was afraid of dying, worried for his friends, and relieved by forgiveness. All of these powerful emotions simply started overflowing from within him. In that moment, all his other personas vanished. He was just a boy, beginning a new chapter. The carriage wheels rumbled forward, marking the start of their journey. It was a one-way trip to the grand capital city. Sei gazed out the window, her eyes wide with pure wonder. She excitedly pointed out the waves, so different from their homeland swamps. Inside, she was completely captivated by the new sights. Ballad watched her with a quiet, fond smile. She turned from the window, asking if something was wrong. He became instantly flustered, denying that anything was the matter. With a knowing giggle, she noted how strange he was acting. He cursed himself internally, still feeling the awkwardness from before. His embarrassment was all because of that one incident. Back home, he had been preparing to enroll in the school. With his bags packed, he thought his preparations were mostly complete. He stood with his arms crossed, contemplating his next move. He nervously wondered what he should possibly do with the massive pile of gleaming gold coins. Before him sat a literal mountain of his hard-earned money. He clenched his fist, thinking of all the effort it took to save. A wave of manic glee washed over his face. He felt the moment of his greatest triumph had finally arrived. But a voice of reason urged him to wait, to hold on. Masaharu's spirit appeared, pleading with him not to be so hasty. He grabbed Ballad, warning him he was at the point of no return. He insisted that what Ballad planned to do was not normal. But Ballad's eyes were fixed on the glittering temptation. As Ballad cried that the gold was calling him, Masaru despaired. A new, deeper voice asked if it wasn't fine to give in. The spirit of the old samurai, Satoshi, appeared behind them. He smiled, advising that humans should be honest with their desires. Satoshi's influence overwhelmed Masaharu's frantic protests. Ballad decided this was a reward for saving his own life. With a final decision made, He reached for a single coin. He stood ready to immerse himself in his fortune. Drool dripped from his mouth, his mind lost to the gold's radiance. His last thread of reason questioned if he would really do it. With a crazed grin, he decided he didn't care about reason. He gleefully tossed his clothes into the air. With absolute joy, he dove and swam through the sea of coins. He laughed maniacally, thinking this was the most fun ever. This, he felt, was the ultimate culmination of his hard work. Suddenly, the door burst open and Sei entered the room. Ballad's eye went wide with pure, unadulterated shock. Sei's face mirrored his own horrified expression. She stared, frozen, at the sight of her naked master and the money. Ballad's face was a mask of sheer, sweating terror. He could only stammer out her name in his panic. The scene was too much for his young mind to handle. Sei stood completely speechless, her mind utterly blank. Then, they both let out a synchronized scream of pure horror. Sei covered her eyes, begging him to stop talking about his trumpet. Her mortified cries echoed throughout the entire manor. The incident left Ballad a hollowed-out, traumatized husk. 30 minutes later, he was found muttering in a corner. Deep within his mind, his other souls denied all responsibility. Back in the carriage, Ballad lamented having to remember that day. The carriage continued its journey toward the capital. He asked Sei how she was allowed to accompany him. She smiled, saying it was only natural for her to be there. They shared a laugh, and she promised to take care of him. However, she then revealed she was on a special mission. Her expression hardened. She had a secret duty unknown to him. With fists clenched, she vowed she would definitely accomplish it. The story flashes back to a few days before their departure. Selearn confronted her husband, having heard that he struck Ballad. Count Ignis sat calmly, not meeting her gaze. He confirmed it, stating Ballad's failure required punishment. Selearn was incredulous, demanding to know how he saw it as a failure. She exploded, shouting that it was a success worthy of a reward. She insisted that because he succeeded, his actions were an achievement. Ignis argued that Ballad overstepped his authority as a noble. Selearn countered that he had to protect the secret of his sugar. The Count was stunned into silence by her irrefutable point. Her logic hit him like a physical blow. He clutched his chest, completely defeated by her argument. She grabbed his collar, yelling that everyone wants to know his secret. That, she insisted, was all the more reason to guard it. She explained he acted to keep it from their kingdom's own nobles. She likened it to a blacksmith protecting a family technique. To expect him to share the secret would be insulting. Ignis finally slumped in his chair, admitting he now understood. Selearn said she would handle the farm with her own contacts. She then sweetly suggested that he cancel the school enrollment. With a wide smile, she said the re-education was now unnecessary. Ignis panicked, shouting that he couldn't possibly do that. Selearn angrily demanded to know why not. He explained that the king himself had already approved it. Ignis tried to argue its benefits, reminiscing about his own youth. Selearn's expression turned to ice, sensing he thought of another woman. She loomed over him, furious he would send their son there. A dark aura erupted as she invited him to a dance. The Count had to face his fearsome wife with his life on the line. He succeeded in enrolling Ballad, but it came at a great cost. He was banished from their bedroom to the cold, lonely office. Selearn then gave Sei her secret mission, to protect Ballad's chastity. A transition panel marks the end of the flashback. In the carriage, Sei is fired up for her duty, laughing quietly. Ballad pointed out the window, telling her the capital was in sight. He looked ahead, his eyes wide with anticipation for his new life. Peeking from the carriage, Ballad points out their destination, the capital city. With a twig in his mouth, Ballad steels himself for what's to come. Their small carriage rumbles toward the massive, walled city of Camelin. He reflects on the fact that this incredible place will now be his home. Filled with resolve for the new chapter of his life, he is ready. The story begins, showing Ballad poised under the massive shadow of another. From within the city, a sea of rooftops stretches out to the horizon. Ballad and Say take in the new sights with wide-eyed curiosity. Their journey ends before the imposing stone gates of the Royal Night School. A large figure greets them at the door, stating he has been waiting. General Ramles welcomes them with a booming laugh and open arms. He flashes a wide grin, happy to welcome the boy to his school. Ballad politely apologizes for whatever unreasonable request his father made. Ramles corrects him, asking to be called principal instead of general. He says the real problem wasn't the enrollment, but Maga's demand. At his mother's name, Say forces a twitching smile while Ballad pales. Breaking into a cold sweat, Ballad nervously asks what his mother told him. The principal explains that letting Say work at the school is perfectly fine. The real issue is that she has forbidden him from going outside alone. Ballad is internally furious, screaming at his mother for her overprotectiveness. The principal sincerely apologizes, admitting he is powerless against her. He asks Ballad to consider that the school's teachers are frontline veterans. He continues, asking what their odds would be of winning against her. Ballad knows the answer. They would stand absolutely no chance of victory. Ramles begs him to just ask for permission before venturing outside. He offers them the faculty room to rest after their very long journey. From the window, the principal watches them leave with a sigh of amusement. He wonders if his mother's actions are love or simply coddling him. He recognizes the situation for what it is and moves on. He grins, looking forward to the changes this prodigy will bring. Laughing, he eagerly anticipates having his own sparring match with the boy. The next day dawns bright over the capital, heralding a new beginning. Ballad fastens the buttons on his new, formal school uniform. He thinks to himself that having separate rooms from now on will be good. Say approaches, complimenting him on how great he looks in the uniform. She stops him, pointing out that his collar is crooked and needs fixing. A little flustered by her close proximity, Ballad stammers out his thanks. She says it's her job, then urges him to hurry so he won't be late. As she leaves, she informs him she is also heading to her new workplace. A new day at the academy begins for both the young master and his maid. In the school halls, students whisper about the tiny new transfer student. They speculate that he is either dangerous, strong, or has powerful parents. The gossip continues, focusing on his record-breaking young age of 12. A red-headed cadet, Brooks Irvin, asks his companion for her opinion. He tries to get the attention of a girl who is absorbed in her book. The girl, Silk Randolph, coldly replies that she is simply not interested. Brooks sighs, unsurprised by her typically dismissive and cold response. He muses that her arrogance is a shame, considering her good looks. His attention is then drawn to the small figure of Ballad in the hall. Their instructor introduces the new transfer student, Ballad Cornelius, to the class. The other students erupt in laughter, mocking his small, unimposing size. Ballad can only offer a strained, nervous laugh in response to the teasing. The instructor warns that on a battlefield, he won't get to choose opponents. With a fierce grin, Ballad confirms that he understands the lesson perfectly. The instructor yells at the class, reminding them that Ballad is their comrade. The entire class snaps to attention, shouting their affirmation in unison. Ballad looks on, a little taken aback by the instructor's sudden intensity. The instructor admits they can't rely on him without knowing his true strength. Therefore, he declares, today's first lesson will be practical training. Ballad agrees with a sweaty, strained smile, knowing this will be difficult. They are led to the school's grand and ornately decorated training arena. The students gather in the hall, surrounded by weapons and training equipment. From a high vantage point, the students look small in the vast arena. Ballad looks around, impressed that the school lives up to its royal title. Instructor Lombardo asks him if he knows how to use body-strengthening magic. Ballad smirks confidently, confirming that of course he knows how. The instructor is pleased, noting that this knowledge will speed things along. An aura of power flares around him as he prepares for the demonstration. He announces that he, Lombardo Weisley, will be Ballad's first opponent. Ballad laments that everyone he meets insists on such Spartan training. The other students feel sorry for the tiny new kid facing the teacher. Ballad realizes the situation is bad, with the eyes of everyone on him. He knows that if he fails here, it will follow him for years. An aura surrounds him as he declares that he absolutely cannot lose. Lombardo grins, telling Cadet Ballad to come at him without holding back. With a fierce battle cry, Ballad accepts the challenge and charges forward. His incredible speed catches both Brooks and Silk completely by surprise. He closes the distance in a blur, landing a solid punch on the instructor. The instructor's counterattack, however, is incredibly heavy and powerful. Pressing his advantage, Lombardo grabs hold of him, declaring he has him now. But Ballad slips from his grasp, moving with incredible fluid speed. The instructor looks down in shock, realizing his opponent is now behind him. Ballad stomps hard on Lombardo's foot, breaking his balance instantly. He pivots smoothly, using the opening to get into position for a throw. Using his opponent's own momentum against him, he begins the technique. With a firm grip on the larger man, he executes the finishing move. The massive instructor is sent tumbling helplessly through the air. The watching students can only let out a collective gasp of utter disbelief. Lying on the ground, Lombardo shouts in pure, unadulterated shock. Ballad stands over his defeated teacher, panting lightly from the exertion. He muses that the technique was easy, wondering if grappling is uncommon here. A booming voice from above suddenly declares that the match is over. Principal Ramles lands in the arena, towering over the two combatants. The principal applauds loudly, praising Ballad for the interesting display. Lombardo looks on, still processing his sudden and unexpected defeat. He admits that Ballad completely outwitted him, calling the feat astonishing. His expression is one of genuine admiration for the young boy's skill. He asks to learn the technique, recognizing its value against stronger foes. Ballad happily agrees, saying he is fine with teaching the instructor. With a grateful smile, Lombardo says that he will be counting on him. The students stared in utter disbelief, Ballad himself looking surprised by the outcome. The cadets erupted in excited chatter, wondering how Ballad had performed the incredible feat. The boisterous Brooks was left stammering, completely overwhelmed by what he had just witnessed. Brooks's eyes shone with admiration. It was amazing that martial arts could defeat strength. While Brooks was overcome with giddy excitement, Silk could only watch in stunned silence. A faint blush appeared on Silk's cheeks as she quietly wondered what she had seen. The defeated instructor, Lombardo, showed his respect, astonished by the boy's unique technique. As Ballad stood victorious, Silk found herself questioning the true identity of this new student. Suddenly, Principal Ramles appeared, playfully scooping up Ballad and asking what was happening. Ballad's face filled with sweat and terror as he recognized the formidable principal. With a wild, toothy grin, Ramles declared that he would be the next challenger. Ballad shrieked in despair, certain that this was the end, and he just knew it. After the match, Ballad lay defeated while the principal childishly celebrated his victory. A history lesson begins, recounting the devastating Antrim War from over a decade ago. The narrative shifts to the Tisvy Kingdom, where civil war began 8 years prior. The war created a boom for the trading nation of Tisvy, enriching its merchants. This policy allowed the merchants to amass great power, threatening the established nobility. The king's younger brother, Archduke Antonio, strongly objected to this shift in power. He joined with disgruntled nobles and knights to initiate a violent coup d'état. Their rebellion was successful, and the ruling king was brutally executed. Antonio was then inaugurated as the new Archduke, seizing control of the nation. The former queen, Catalina, escaped to Mauritius but died of illness soon after. The war-weary Maishia Kingdom was unable to send reinforcements to aid the queen. This tragic series of events marked the true beginning of Tistyvy's misfortunes. The nobles began exploiting the merchants, who either fled or organized a resistance. The Archduke rallied an army to assault the city where the wealthy merchants resisted. However, The well-funded mercenary forces managed to defeat the Archduke's army. This defeat fractured his followers into opposing camps of hawks and moderates. Tisvy was thus split into 4 warring factions, with no one sure of allegiances. Various cliques and outside interests funded different factions, prolonging the chaotic conflict. This is how Tistyvy's civil war became an unending conflict that continues today. The next chapter begins, with Silk looking annoyed at the boys' chaotic antics. Ballad entered the school cafeteria for the first time, impressed by its grand scale. His new friend Brooks commented from his seat that it was quite something. Ballad, looking at the grand hall, quietly agreed that it really was impressive. Brooks explained that good food was a joy for them, suggesting they sit down. Brooks warmly welcomed Ballad, who agreed they should get along well. Ballad recalled how pushy Brooks had been, demanding they immediately go get food. Despite his friend's pushiness, Ballad admitted to himself that this was actually nice. From across the hall, an unknown figure watched the 2 boys eating together. Brooks eagerly opened his mouth, ready to enjoy his well-earned lunch. Suddenly, his eyes flew open in shock, as if struck by lightning. He remained frozen in place, prompting a confused Ballad to ask what was wrong. With a trembling hand, Brooks pointed across the room, struggling to form words. He finally roared out his discovery. A beautiful maid was standing in their cafeteria. Brooks panicked, asking why a maid was here, while Ballad feigned ignorance. Say looked on, slightly surprised by the sudden and intense commotion she had caused. She quickly recovered, offering a charming smile and waved to her new admirers. The students watched in awe, exclaiming that the beautiful maid was heading their way. Arriving at their table, she smiled and asked Ballad if he needed more water. Ballad happily accepted her offer, holding up his empty cup for a refill. She carefully poured the water, the simple act observed by the entire cafeteria. Ballad took a sip, remarking that it looked like she was settling in well. With a knowing smile, Say noted that her young master had already made a friend. The 2 of them shared a private, comfortable laugh, familiar with each other. Brooks finally exploded, demanding to know how Ballad could possibly know this maid. Say formally introduced herself, explaining she came from his home to watch over him. Completely smitten, Brooks introduced himself, promising he would never forget her name. A crowd of other students, looking like zombies, clamored for their own introductions. A calm voice cut through the noise as a new figure approached the table. It was Silk, who politely asked if she could join their table, surprising everyone. Ballad looked up, confirming that he remembered her name was Silk. Pleased, she smiled and asked if it was all right to call him by his first name. Brooks shouted in utter shock, unable to believe what he was hearing. Say curtly replied the seat was free, while Silk wondered if it was a joke. Brooks was baffled. Silk never socialized and was only interested in becoming stronger. Silk ignored him, complimenting Ballad on the amazing technique he used against the instructor. Ballad nervously deflected, saying it was nothing compared to his mother's skill. Silk was shocked, asking if he truly trained with the legendary Silverlight. Ballad apologized, admitting his ignorance about the kingdom's famous figures. Surprised by her knowledge, Ballad asked if she was from another kingdom. She explained she was born here, but her mother was the Queen of Tisvy. Ballad was left speechless by this revelation, unsure of how to properly respond. He recalled the mercenary Zerko mentioning her horrific experiences in Tistyvy's civil war. Seeing his discomfort, Silk gently told him not to worry about it. She was grateful to be safe and sound now, thanks to her father's help. But she declared her resolve to one day end the conflict in her mother's homeland. To do so, she needed to become stronger, and she pleaded for Ballad's help. Their moment was shattered as Say slammed a pitcher down, cracking the table. With a menacing glare, Say offered water and asked for Silk's food order. A startled Silk ordered a sandwich while Ballad and Brooks watched in shock. Say then lectured young Madame Silk on proper conduct in a place of learning. Her use of the formal, yet sarcastic, title was filled with clear disdain. Silk glared back, equally annoyed by the maid's condescending tone and attitude. The tension between the two young women was thick enough to cut with a knife. When questioned, Say claimed she was helping a schoolmate, an excuse Ballad saw through. Silk fumed, wondering what was wrong with the servant for ruining the mood. An invisible current of pure animosity crackled between the two fierce rivals. Caught in the middle, Ballad and Brooks could only agree that they were terrifying. Their instincts screamed a single, undeniable truth. They were irreconcilable enemies. A few days later, Say approached Ballad once again in the school cafeteria. With a radiant smile, she asked if he would accompany her on a shopping trip. The suggestion of a shopping trip sent Brooks and the other cadets into an uproar. Brooks immediately volunteered, enthusiastically asking if he could join them as well. Say instantly rejected his offer with a polite apology, sending him reeling. Crushed, Brooks lamented his instant rejection, though he seemed somewhat saddened by it. Ballad wondered why he couldn't come, but Brooks quickly recovered his spirits. Brooks tearfully begged Ballad to consider the mood of the delicate situation. Annoyed, Ballad told him not to even think about it. He just wanted to hit him. The other students despaired, while Silk simply thought the entire ordeal was too much. A young woman stares with wide, shocked eyes, uttering a confused "huh." A crowd of boys wails, demanding Silk give Ballad a stern talking to. Ballad, Say, and Brooks are together, Say's expression one of clear annoyance. Ballad looks completely flustered by the sudden and dramatic commotion. Silk stands resolutely, agreeing to their pleas as the boys begin to cheer. With clenched fists, the boys shout for her to smash the little date. The boys call out to Ballad, their faces alight with mischievous anticipation. Silk turns to Ballad and announces that she would like to come along. The boys collapse in utter despair, realizing their plan has spectacularly backfired. Silk observes the ensuing chaos with a stoic, unreadable expression. Brooks winces in frustration, his own plans now thoroughly ruined. Ballad looks on, nervous and confused by the bizarre turn of events. A student with glasses enters the cafeteria, declaring that he is hungry. He stops short, utterly bewildered by the scene of collective student despair. The chapter page shows Ballad, Silk, and Say in a cluttered shop. The scene shifts to a sprawling cityscape, identified as the capital, Camelin. A bustling street reveals the vibrant and crowded marketplace of the city. The large, imposing headquarters of the Doubting Company is shown. Inside, Selena sits across a desk from a stern, older man. The man, Director Cran, asks if she truly has no intention of selling. Selena explains the shop is an inheritance filled with precious memories. Cran condescendingly suggests an affiliation would bring her trust and clients. Selena counters that with a unique product, the shopkeeper is most important. Cran's inner thoughts reveal he initially thought she would be an easy mark. He realizes he severely underestimated the girl from the countryside. He gives her a veiled threat, saying the capital is not a forgiving place. Selena smiles slyly, assuring him she is already well aware of that. She bids him farewell, leaving with a polite but firm final word. An employee watches her stomp away, letting out a simple "oh." He cautiously asks his president how the important meeting went. Selena fumes, exclaiming that Cran's plan to exploit them was completely obvious. She turns away, her mind already moving on to her next thought. She erupts, vowing Selearn won't get to have Ballad all to herself. Another employee, Grimer, is told about the president's strange outburst. He sighs, saying she's always like this and it's best to just ignore it. Back in his office, Director Cran slams his fist down in fury. He seethes, vowing that the little company from the sticks won't get away. He decides that if money fails, then violence is the next logical step. He muses that it's common for merchant girls to be assaulted or kidnapped. He hires a group of rough-looking thugs to carry out his dirty work. The thugs recoil, terrified to learn the sovereign company is tied to Silverlight. Cran is completely bewildered by their sudden and fearful refusal. They declare they want no part of it and tell him to get lost. A subordinate advises him to stop, terrified of facing Ballad's mother. Cran, defeated, laments that the thugs returned his kindness with betrayal. He curses the tiny company for causing him such profound humiliation. His face twists into a snarl of pure hatred for the sovereign company. Back in the city, Silk apologizes to Ballad and Say for keeping them waiting. Ballad waves to her cheerfully, with his ever-present maid at his side. He thinks to himself that seeing her in civilian clothing is refreshing. He asks Silk where she wants to go first to buy her new armor. Say insists she's fine anywhere, while Silk suggests leaving her plans for last. Ballad is caught in a moment of indecisive social awkwardness. As they walk, Say thanks her young master for accompanying her today. Ballad agrees, noting she's usually too busy with work to go shopping. He finds Silk's happy expression precious, while Say pouts about her ruined plans. Ballad searches for their destination, thinking it should be around here. He spots the building, a two-story establishment with large double doors. He peeks inside the door, announcing their arrival with a polite hello. He knocks again, politely excusing himself as he pushes the door open. Selena launches herself at him, joyfully shouting how much she missed him. Her enthusiastic greeting is abruptly muffled by a hand over her face. Silk holds Selena's face, her own expression one of pure annoyance. Releasing her, Silk claims her body simply moved on its own accord. A blushing Selena demands to know what kind of person grabs a maiden's face. She then turns to Silk, asking who she actually is. Selena angrily asks, Say, why a weird pest is attached to Ballad. She then confronts Ballad, demanding to know what he's doing in the capital. Ballad explains to a confused Silk that he's known Selena since childhood. He adds she's the surprisingly young and skilled president of her company. Silk introduces herself as a classmate, and Selena returns the greeting. Selena's smile is razor-sharp, crackling with a competitive energy. Silk's own smile is just as sharp, a silent challenge passing between them. A rough voice interrupts, asking if this is the sovereign company. A large group of menacing thugs barges into the otherwise quiet shop. Selena tells them she is busy and asks them to leave immediately. One of the thugs asks where her usual bodyguards are. The leader leers at the girls, suggesting they borrow the beauties for a bit. Say's eyes narrow as she threatens to tear it off if they keep looking. Silk coolly folds her arms, asking who these rude men are. The leader sneers, questioning how long their tough attitudes will last. Ballad steps forward with a disarming smile, asking if they have business there. A close-up shows the thug's ugly, contemptuous sneer. The leader proudly declares they are the Owls of Darkness, rulers of the town. Ballad feigns ignorance, claiming he has never heard of them before. He asks if they're sure disobeying the underground guild is wise. The thugs begin to sweat, realizing the gravity of that powerful name. The leader blusters, refusing to believe a brat has ties to the guild. Ballad's eyes narrow as he asks about this someone they shouldn't upset. He warns them that they now have much bigger things to worry about. A sharp sound effect signals the instantaneous beginning of the fight. A thug is sent flying through the air by a powerful, unseen blow. The entire gang is thrown into chaos as they are all swiftly beaten down. The leader can only stammer out a disbelieving what. Ballad stands over two of the defeated thugs, his form radiating power. He tells the leader he should have picked his fights more carefully. The terrified leader lets out a pathetic shriek of pure fear. The entire group of thugs is sent flying out of the shop's door. They land in a large, dusty heap in the street outside. Ballad's boot looms over the leader's head, ready to continue the interrogation. Ballad leans over the thug, demanding to know who hired him for this job. The thug's resolve begins to crumble under the intense pressure of the interrogation. He breaks down completely, confessing Director Cran of the doubting company was behind it all. Selena exclaims Cran's name in shock, as Ballad asks if she knows the man. She furiously explains Cran's plot to buy her shop and destroy the market when she refused. Ballad notes doubting is a top capital company. Selena agrees their methods are nasty. He regrets his mistake, realizing the guild's influence was not enough to protect Selena. Say confirms that doubting is a troublesome opponent, connected to the highest aristocrats. Silk wisely points out that the thug's testimony is useless against such powerful nobles. She suggests just having him arrested, but Ballad simply answers with a firm no. Ballad sees this as a great opportunity, promising Cran will soon regret his actions. With a predatory grin, he vows to make the director pay before his final exit. The story's chapter opens with Selena, Silk, and Sei standing together, a formidable trio. The group arrives at their destination, the grand and imposing Randolph estate. Silk announces her arrival to the head butler, Hans, who formally welcomes her home. Hans, the Randolph butler, turns his attention to Silk's companions, asking if they are friends. Silk introduces Ballad, Sei the maid, and Selena of the Sovereign Company. Hans acknowledges Count Cornelius's reputation and hopes Ballad will be a good friend to Silk. Ballad sweats, feeling the immense pressure of being in the home of a top noble. Silk asks the surprise butler if she and the other girls can use the bath. A flustered Hans quickly agrees, asking for a moment to prepare everything for them. When asked what he will do, Ballad politely says he is fine and will just wait. Hans directs him to the terrace, promising to bring him tea while he waits. The girls head off to the bath, waving goodbye to Ballad for now. Ballad muses that he must find a way to kill time, as women everywhere take long baths. In the bathhouse, steam rises as the girls prepare for their bath. Silk skeptically asks if the strange concoction Ballad provided is some new merchandise. They examine the odd ingredients for the hair treatment, finding it all very strange. In a flashback, Selena asks Ballad if he has a plan for their predicament. Ballad scratches his head, trying to come up with a good idea. Suddenly, an aggressive, almost manic energy seems to possess him completely. The personality of his past self, Maseru, surfaces with a wild, toothy grin. The girls watch, utterly bewildered by his sudden and bizarre transformation. Silk asks with concern if he is all right, as he seems to be in distress. Ballad explodes with emotion, shouting that he absolutely cannot take this anymore. He points an accusing finger directly at the startled Selena. His finger then swings around to point directly at a confused Silk. He clutches his head, lamenting that he cannot approve of this situation, even with pretty girls. The unexpected compliment makes the three girls blush with pleasure. Finally, he points his finger accusingly at a shocked Sei. Masaru erupts in a passionate rant about the tragedy of unkempt hair in this world. His promise of becoming 20% more beautiful strikes the girls like a bolt of lightning. Now completely sold on the idea, they eagerly demand Ballad teach them the process. Masaru's spirit vanishes with a thumbs up, leaving Ballad to handle the consequences. He tries to explain the science of hair care, but the girls are totally lost. He smiles, suggesting that since seeing is believing, they should just try it. Returning to the present, the girls are in the bath, ready for the experiment. They are united in their quest, determined to become 20% more beautiful. On the terrace, Ballad is startled by the sudden arrival of Marquis Alfred Randolph. The Marquis learns from Hans that his daughter has brought friends home from school. He is surprised, as Silk has never brought friends over before. Hans informs him that one of the guests is the son of Count Cornelius. The Marquis's face contorts in rage at the news of that philanderer's son being here. He storms off, vowing to eliminate the boy before he can get close to his daughter. Ballad sits peacefully on the terrace, enjoying a cup of hot tea. He finds the simple act of watching the sunset with tea to be quite elegant. His peace is shattered by the Marquis, looming over him with a murderous expression. Ballad immediately recognizes Silk's father and feels the overwhelming wave of his hostility. The Marquis observes that Ignis's son is younger than he had expected. He resolves to kill the boy on the spot if he has any designs on his daughter. The Marquis begins his interrogation of the terrified young Ballad. He warns Ballad to speak only the truth, as his safety is not guaranteed. His face is a mask of pure menace as he prepares to question him. He commands Ballad to swear to God that he will not tell a single lie. He grabs Ballad by the collar, demanding to know his relationship with Silk. Ballad is completely flabbergasted by the direct and aggressive question. He frantically tries to explain, but the Marquis twists his words with angry accusations. Ballad suggests waiting for Silk, explaining his business here is a trade secret. The two lock eyes in a tense, silent standoff, neither willing to back down. The Marquis grunts, seemingly satisfied for now, to Ballad's immense relief. However, the Marquis's simmering rage is still palpable, leaving Ballad on edge. Back in the bathhouse, the sound of splashing water signals the end of the bath. The girls decide it's time to follow the instructions for the hair treatment. They sit in the hot water, filled with excited anticipation for the results. Silk turns to Selena, complimenting her on her impressive figure. Selena laughs, saying she was just like that at Selearn's, says, age, a clear misstatement. A blushing Silk wonders aloud if she will ever grow to be so well endowed. The memory of her own mother's slender frame causes her to freeze in horror. She sighs, telling the others she was just despairing about her genetic future. The others laugh, encouraging her to share her troubles with them. An hour later, Marquis Alfred's patience has worn dangerously thin. Ballad looks like a withered husk, drained by the sheer force of the Marquis's presence. The tension between the boy and the overprotective father is at its absolute peak. The Marquis suggests a fist fight, while Ballad desperately begs him to wait a bit longer. Ballad prays for the girls to return before he is beaten to a pulp. 20 minutes later, Ballad looks like he has aged 50 years from the stress. The Marquis finally relents, telling Ballad to wait in another room. Ballad insists he has no ill intentions, but the Marquis scoffs at his denial. The Marquis clenches his fist, telling Ballad not to take this personally. He looms over the boy, ready to strike, telling him to blame his own bad luck. Just as he moves to attack, the girls finally emerge from the bath. The Marquis stops dead in his tracks, his attention captured by his daughter's return. His eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief at the sight before him. The three girls stand there, their hair transformed, shining with an ethereal, silky glow. The Marquis stares, completely baffled, wondering what in the world has happened. The girls are ecstatic, unable to stop touching their impossibly soft and radiant hair. A genuine, unguarded smile of pure joy blossoms on Silk's face. The Marquis gazes at his daughter, his stern expression softening at the sight. He turns to Ballad, his voice now quiet, and admits that perhaps he should thank him. He reflects on how very long it has been since he last saw his daughter smile so freely. Marquis Alfred watches from the terrace, thinking his daughter has her smile back. The three young women turn to Ballad, with Silk asking for his opinion. Ballad smiles warmly, telling them that all three of them look very pretty. Overjoyed by the compliment, the girls blush and giggle amongst themselves. The Marquis's menacing, shadowed form looms over the blissfully unaware Ballad. He lunges, grabbing Ballad's face and yelling that he is still his father's son. A horrified Silk rushes forward, asking what her father is possibly doing. He struggles against her grasp, vowing to erase any man who approaches Silk. Mortified by the scene, Silk begins to shout at her father in frustration. With all her might, she screams at the top of her lungs that she hates him. Her words strike the Marquis like a physical blow, and he gasps in agony. On that day, a wail of pure despair echoed throughout the Randolph estate. Later, the magical hair treatment was presented to the royal family. Word quickly spread among the court nobles of the royal's beautiful hair. As the source, Marquis Alfred was soon flooded with inquiries from other nobles. One desperate nobleman begs for a sample, fearing his wife's wrath. Alfred listens with a calculating gaze, recognizing a political opportunity. He pretends to be reluctant, but agrees to share a small amount. He then warns the grateful man that this must remain a secret. He knew these favors would be of great help to the Randolph house. He had to admit that the youngster Ballad was both clever and greedy. However, he vowed to himself that he would still never give him his daughter. The chapter cover features Brooks Irvin, armed with a spear and shield. The story then shifts to the grand headquarters of the Doubting Company. From a distance, Ballad and Selena are seen approaching the main entrance. Selena remarks that she didn't expect to return here so soon. She is secretly ecstatic to be alone with Ballad for a business meeting. They are led into a room where a man is waiting for them. He welcomes them warmly, introducing himself as Thomas Phillips. He is the director of foreign commercial affairs for the company. He offers them tea as he prepares to get down to business. He immediately asks about their popular hair cleaning products. He has been receiving many inquiries about them from foreign countries. He slyly adds that Director Cran must be quite perplexed by this development. The company's large foreign department often competed with the local one. Within this rivalry, Cran and Thomas were fighting for their positions. Thomas asks how they managed to get friendly with the powerful Randolph house. Ballad laughs nervously, claiming that it was purely a coincidence. He couldn't possibly reveal the Marquis's desperate promise to his daughter. Thomas lets it go, asking why they specifically requested to see him. His expression becomes sharp as he focuses on the real issue. Selena explains that Cran tried to buy her company and then sent thugs. Thomas feigns surprise that she had spoken to the Underground Guild. Ballad explains that an influential mercenary friend mediated the situation. He pivots back to the main topic, noting the untapped foreign markets. Thomas confirms they want his department to handle their foreign trade. He realizes that this partnership would destroy Cran's reputation for good. With demand so high, it was suspicious Cran hadn't secured a deal. Thomas knows that after this, Cran will be completely finished. He quickly dismisses his thoughts when Ballad asks what he was muttering. Selena explains they value Doubting's network but lack the distribution channels. She proudly states that her company possesses an incredible product. Thomas agrees that his department has the distribution channel she needs. Her radiant hair catches his eye as she proposes a partnership. She gives him a confident, winning smile, having made her case. Thomas is completely captivated, thinking her beauty is like a goddess's. She boasts that nobles everywhere would do anything for hair like hers. He realizes that this is a proposal far too good to pass up. He accepts, confident his company is the only one to meet her needs. Their handshake sealed a historic deal that would create a continental boom. Smitten, Thomas awkwardly asks Selena to dinner to celebrate their new deal. She cheerfully rejects him, claiming to be a chaste woman. The shock of rejection was more depressing than any failure in his life. The hair product became a massive success, though its price was steep. In a dark room, an angry voice shouts, "Damn it!" At a tavern, the disgraced Director Cran vents his fury to the bartender. The bartender listens with a placid, almost detached expression on his face. Cran slams down his glass, furious that he was unceremoniously fired. He clenches his fists in rage, cursing the ungrateful bastards. He collapses on the bar, questioning what's so great about that hit company. He vows revenge, muttering that it is all their fault. He demands the strongest drink, but the bartender says he has had enough. The bartender's hand trembles as Cran continues to rage at him. Suddenly, Cran feels dizzy, wondering if he has had too much to drink. A gloved hand suddenly clamps over his mouth from behind, silencing him. A voice warns him that he has gotten too close to their guild. Cran's muffled screams are useless as the figure holds him tight. The mysterious figure holds a sharp stiletto, glinting in the dim light. The bartender reveals his allegiance, telling Cran that this is a mercy. Cran's eyes widen in terror as the blade plunges toward his face. The scene cuts to black, punctuated by a violent, shattering sound. The story shifts to the quiet, sunlit arena of the night school. It is the day of the promotion exam, and the students are filing in. 5 first-year students are hoping to prove their worth and skip grades. The exam consists of a written test and a mock battle against a senior. A foot steps forward, signaling the end of the written portion. Brooks stretches victoriously, thanking Ballad for helping him study for the test. Silk chides him, saying he can't fail after Ballad taught him so well. Their friends, Nelson and Hermes, are shocked that Brooks actually passed. Brooks erupts in a comical fit of rage, shouting that he tries hard. He declares that he has no intention of being left behind. Instructor Lombardo appears in the arena, asking if everyone is present. He loudly announces that it is time for the afternoon promotion exam. He reminds the students that this is merely a test for promotion. Its true purpose is to see if they possess the mettle of a knight. He tells the first years to use this chance to show their true strength. He orders the second years to show them the massive gap in their skills. The two classes face off as Lombardo wishes them luck in their battles. He instructs them to step into the center when their name is called. Brooks grins eagerly as his name is called for the first match. A second-year student named Cunningham introduces himself with a confident roar. The crowd of upperclassmen cheers him on, urging him not to lose. Ballad watches from the sidelines with a grin, finding the spectacle awesome. He quietly dismisses his friend's opponent as a bloodthirsty moron. The match begins with an explosive, fiery clash between the two fighters. Brooks deftly dodges a powerful blast of fire magic from Cunningham. Cunningham roars that he has his opponent cornered now, pressing his attack. With eyes wide in concentration, Brooks evades the relentless assault. He moves with incredible speed, creating afterimages to confuse his opponent. Cunningham grows frustrated, yelling at the elusive first year to quit squirming. Brooks continues to weave through the storm of attacks with ease. The crowd is stunned, marveling that the first year hasn't been hit once. Silk admits she is surprised, having thought Brooks was just a reckless charger. Ballad explains that Brooks is actually impressive, especially his kinetic vision. He boosts this extraordinary vision with magic, making him nearly impossible to hit. The fight continues, with Brooks staying just out of his opponent's reach. Cunningham shouts that Brooks can't possibly win by just dodging forever. Brooks simply responds with a confident "heh." Agreeing with his opponent, he suddenly dispels his own strengthening magic. Cunningham is confused, wondering what his opponent could be planning now. Brooks calmly plants his foot on the ground, saying, "Well then," an immense burst of magical energy erupts from his legs, shattering the stone floor. With a predatory grin, he says that, as wished, he will attack now. He launches himself forward in a massive, fiery explosion of pure speed. A spectator stammers in shock, seeing the incredible charge coming. The spectator is unable to finish their thought, utterly stunned by the sight. Brooks slams into the unprepared Cunningham with the force of a battering ram. Cunningham's face is a mask of shock and pain as he is sent flying. Ballad and Silk watch with wide-eyed astonishment at the explosive outcome. Instructor Lombardo lets out a simple "ooh," impressed by the display. Brooks wears a triumphant, almost crazed expression after his victory. His friends, Hermes and Nelson, are completely flabbergasted by what they saw. The instructor raises his hand, declaring Brooks Irvin the victor of the match. Brooks pumps his fist behind his shield, shouting that he has won. Lombardo analyzes the technique, noting it was an explosive boost from focus power. He muses that it's a powerful but difficult move, yet a first year pulled it off. Brooks collapses to the ground, complaining that he can't even stand anymore. He cries out that his legs are screaming in agony from the technique's backlash. The defeated second years grumble about losing and the fanfare surrounding Ballad. An intense pressure builds among the upperclassmen, who feel utterly humiliated. They desperately urge their next fighter, Islands, not to lose to a first year. The second-year crowd chants for their representative to show the spirit of their class. Hermes, the next first-year fighter, notes nervously that the crowd is now cheering for him. Lombardo announces the next match, first-year Hermes versus second-year Islands. The second match concludes with Islands winning due to his superior experience. The third match was a slugfest, but Nelson's inexperience was a disadvantage. Running out of patience, Nelson aimed for a tie, a challenge Allen accepted. They took each other down, but Allen managed to stand up, securing the win. Lombardo calls for the next match, announcing the first-year contestant. Silk Randolph steps forward, her expression determined as she prepares for a fight. The fourth battle begins. First-year Silk Randolph versus second-year David Glasgow. A high-level battle unfolds, but the difference in their abilities is soon visible. Silk grunts, feeling the immense pressure from her stronger opponent. David presses his attack with a confident, almost condescending smirk. He is surprised as Silk suddenly retreats from his powerful blow. Silk's expression is one of intense focus as she formulates a new plan. She realizes the fight is only even because he's tanking her hits. At this rate, she will lose. Her eyes widen as a desperate, brilliant idea flashes in her mind. She wonders to herself what the unconventional Ballad would do in this situation. David taunts her, saying if she won't come to him, he will come to her. Silk slams her gauntlet hand onto the ground, channeling powerful earth magic. A massive cloud of sand and dust erupts from the arena floor. She is completely enveloped by the thick, swirling cloud she has created. David is caught completely off guard, letting out a confused "what dash." The spectators wonder if she just created a cloud of sand using magic. Blinded, David curses, complaining that he can't see a thing. He lashes out wildly into the cloud, believing he has found her location. His spear strikes her shield and weapon, but she is no longer there. He realizes with utter shock that he has just struck a decoy. Silk emerges from the sandstorm at his unprotected side, ready to strike. She lands a powerful, decisive blow on the surprised David. The incredible impact sends him flying through the air, completely defeated. David lies on the ground, knocked out by the clever and unexpected attack. Silk stands firm, her expression intense after her hard-fought victory. The instructor declares Silk Randolph the victor amidst the settling dust. Panting heavily, Silk looks up, realizing with a blush that she has won. Brooks and Nelson erupt in cheers, shouting that she did it, and it was awesome. The first-year students celebrate wildly as Silk watches them, a small smile on her face. The defeated second years sit in a depressed huddle, resigned to their fate. The first years are now ecstatic, cheering for Ballad to finish the exams. Ballad pumps himself up, declaring that he is ready to go. The fight begins with Ballad being immediately struck by a powerful blow. Brooks and Nelson are shocked by the sudden, overwhelming attack. Ballad is sent flying backward from the sheer force of the blow. He is completely suppressed by his opponent's relentless assault. He is barely able to block the attacks, his eyes wide with shock. Panting heavily, he realizes that this is not good at all. He admits to himself that his opponent is simply stronger than him. The second years are amazed, wondering when their ace, Albert, got so good. Ballad's friends watch with concern as he is relentlessly pushed back. The two fighters clash, but Albert clearly has the upper hand in the exchange. Ballad worries that using fighting moves foreign to this world will seem too strange. He attempts a complex hooking maneuver with his spear to gain an advantage. His spear clashes with Albert's in a blur of motion. He thinks he can entangle his opponent's weapon and disarm him. But Albert easily outmaneuvers him, breaking the lock with ease. Ballad is shocked that Albert yanked his spear back so suddenly. Defeated, he realizes he sees no way to win. He is going to lose. Albert charges forward for what is clearly the final, decisive attack. A black boot suddenly slams into Albert's face, sending him flying. With a contemptuous grace, Selearn lands a devastating kick on the second-year ace. The entire student body watches on, their jaws dropped in comical, unison shock. A student cries out in horror for Albert as he smashes into the wall. From across the arena, Ballad watches the sudden, unexpected chaos unfold. He wryly wonders if Albert's skills have dulled from his time in the capital. A single, stammered word escapes his lips as he recognizes the terrifying intruder. Selearn waves cheerfully to her son, announcing that she simply came to visit. A pained voice groans from the rubble, complaining that they were just having fun. Principal Raml emerges, annoyed that she so meanly kicked him out of the way. Selearn furiously berates Albert for daring to have fun fighting her precious son. Ballad sighs, wondering what the adults are doing to his important promotion exam. His mother notes the exam is ruined, as he yells that it's her fault. With a sly grin, she offers to give him a supplementary exam herself. Ballad laughs nervously, realizing the sheer absurdity and terror of his situation. His classmates watch with grim expressions, fearing for their friend's life. Brooks and another student look on, completely stunned by the bizarre turn of events. Silk is equally shocked, her hand clutching her collar in sheer apprehension. Selearn unleashes a furious barrage, her polearm a whirlwind of pure destruction. Ballad cries out in pain as he desperately blocks a bone-shattering blow. She smashes the ground apart, forcing him to leap back to avoid the impact. She taunts him, asking if he has only gotten better at running away. He yells back in frustration, calling his mother a damned sadist. Silk watches the high-speed battle, her hair whipped back by the sheer force. Selearn lands a sharp kick, sending Ballad stumbling with a yelp of pain. Raml observes that this level of training would destroy a band of knights. He realizes with a sweat that she is holding back just enough not to kill him. The narration ironically calls this brutal display a mother's great love for her child. Say watches from the stands, pitying Ballad for his overbearing mother. Ballad grits his teeth, frustrated by the one-sided and annoying fight. He resolves that he must at least make her break a cold sweat. She mockingly asks what he was expecting to achieve with his clumsy attack. The narration explains the versatility of Warring States period spearmanship. Unlike Mauritian styles, Ballad knew the value of pulling techniques. This ancient knowledge allowed him to find an opening in her tyrannical defense. Using this insight, he succeeded in landing a clean, albeit imaginary, blow. The unexpected tactic leaves Selearn completely and utterly shocked. She admits she has no idea what he was even aiming for with that move. But she compliments his craftiness in finding a gap in her perfect defense. With a wide, satisfied grin, she decides it's time to take him home. Ballad, utterly spent, manages to thank her for the brutal lesson. He finally collapses from sheer exhaustion as his mother watches over him. Selearn sighs, realizing she doesn't have much of a choice in the matter. She calls out to her son, asking if he is all right after their spar. Silk rushes to his side, trying to help the unconscious and battered Ballad. Say watches the scene unfold, her eyes wide with shock and deep concern. Ballad's mother looks on with a comically stressed and worried expression. Say internally screams, demanding to know what Selearn is doing to her master. Silk is flustered by the attention, her hand clutching her uniform nervously. Selearn looks at the girl and feels an odd, sudden sense of sympathy. She notes that Silk is elegant and would make a good wife for Ballad. She turns to the young woman and politely asks for her name. The girl introduces herself as Silk Randolph Tisvy. Selearn's expression becomes sharp and decisive upon hearing the name. Silk begs her not to act like a mother-in-law, apologizing profusely. Selearn lets out a quiet, knowing laugh at the girl's panicked reaction. She declares Silk must marry into their family, as Ballad is the sole heir. Silk waves her hands frantically, insisting it's all a huge misunderstanding. In her panic, she accidentally drops the unconscious Ballad onto the hard floor. The entire arena watches the embarrassing and chaotic conclusion to the exam. With the exam over, Ballad used the following vacation to return home. His ventures in sugar, gilded items, and hair products produced great profits. The new Randolph connection gave him a direct line to the royal family. With newfound money and support, Ballad lost all of his self-restraint. He began his new project with a massive expansion of his sugar beet farm. This was followed by the swift construction of a new, larger workshop. He funded land readjustment and the advanced four-crop rotation farming method. Zerko's mercenaries were hired as a vigilante corps, ensuring public order. Ballad surveyed his revived domain, pleased with the progress he had made. He laughed maniacally, declaring that this was not the end of his ambition. He vowed to keep advancing and amassing more and more money for his domain. Say watched him from afar, her expression completely deadpan at his usual antics. She drily asked her young master if he could please regain his senses now. A title page marks the beginning of the 18th chapter of the story. After the exams, Ballad celebrated his 13th birthday back in his home realm. He raises a glass to the crowd, a bright, happy smile on his face. A grand party was held at the Cornelius estate to mark the occasion. Many nobles attended now that the family's financial situation had improved. Selearn noted their nerve for showing up after years of ridicule. Count Ignis explained that such nobles are simply sensitive to changes in power. He added that a certain guest attendance was also a major factor. That guest was the powerful Marquis Randolph of the 10 Great Families. Count Ignis greeted his old acquaintance, surprised that he decided to attend. The Marquis grumbled that he only came because his daughter asked him to. He then loudly vowed he would never hand his precious daughter over to them. Elsewhere, Ballad politely thanked Silk for coming to his birthday party. Suddenly, Teresa Bradford appeared, having finally located her rival, Ballad. She declared that though she lost before, she would definitely win next time. She promised to show him something interesting, much to Say's utter horror. A final, ominous promise echoed as she was dragged away from the party. Back at school, Ballad reflected on his new status as a second-year student. He mused that time passed quickly, recalling Teresa's strange promise. He greeted his classmates, ready to begin a new, hopefully peaceful, school year. The scene shifts to the sprawling stables of the Royal Night School. Ballad was surprised to hear about the arrival of new transfer students. A classmate confirmed that there had been quite a lot of them this year. For some reason, Ballad couldn't help but feel a bad premonition. Just as his friends arrived, a large figure appeared in the stable doorway. It was Instructor Lombardo, leaning against a fence with a weary expression. He told Cadet Ballad that, unfortunately, he needed him to come with him. When Ballad asked what happened, the teacher explained it was the new transfers. Instructor Lombardo finds Ballad, explaining that new students want a promotion exam. He says they can't ignore the request because the students are important people. Ballad asks who these troublemakers are, but Lombardo hesitates to say. Suddenly, the loud sound of galloping hooves echoes through the stables. A horse charges towards them as Lombardo desperately shouts for it to stop. Both Ballad and his instructor recoil with expressions of pure, comical terror. The horse and its rider soar gracefully over a wooden fence. The rider is revealed to be Teresa, who shouts Ballad's name in greeting. Ballad, completely baffled by her appearance, asks what on earth she is doing. Teresa beams, announcing that she has arrived just as she promised. Leaping in shock, Ballad demands to know what promise she is talking about. Amused, Teresa asks if he's surprised. He deadpans that she was the surprise. He can't believe she transferred, utterly baffled by her train of thought. Teresa ignores him, turning to gush over how lovely Silk is. Ballad turns to a stunned Lombardo, asking if he has to deal with this idiot. Lombardo notes their acquaintance, but says another student wants to fight Ballad. The instructor hesitates, looking away as he considers who to introduce next. In the background, a new figure is seen laughing softly to himself. A handsome, blonde-haired young man remarks on the pleasantness of the crowd. He holds his stomach, chuckling at the chaotic scene before him. Brooks points, asking Silk if this newcomer is the other person. The young man casually pushes himself off a fence to face Ballad. Ballad bows formally, pleased to be granted the role of His Highness' opponent. With a sly grin, he calls the prince out for being so arbitrary. The prince is impressed that Ballad recognized him without an introduction. Ballad smiles, explaining that he always stays informed about his superiors. William explains his mother and sister have become unrecognizable in their beauty. Ballad feigns ignorance, asking if it wasn't the work of the companies. The prince points, correctly identifying Ballad as the true mastermind behind it all. He warns Ballad that he cannot hope to fool the entire country. William adds that his father also suspects Ballad is behind the sugar and gold works. Ballad waves his hands dismissively, claiming he only assisted a little. William suggests he could be Secretary of Financial Affairs, but Ballad politely declines. The prince jokes that Ballad's father, Ignis, will likely serve another 50 years. Ballad changes the subject, suggesting they proceed with the promotion exam. The prince internally scoffs at the thought of the meathead Count Ignis retiring. The scene shifts to the stone archway of the school's training hall. Inside, Ballad asks the prince about the rules for their exam. William admits that he found Ballad's reputation to be very interesting. Ballad watches his opponent with a serious and focused expression. The prince's demeanor suddenly hardens, his playful attitude vanishing. Without warning, he fires a blunt projectile from the tip of his spear. Ballad dodges just in time, his eyes widening in surprise at the sneak attack. A small, confident smirk plays on the prince's lips. He tells Ballad not to think of this as some pointless game. He asks if it isn't natural for a warrior to seek a true challenge. He concedes that other things are important, but for now, this is it. Ballad takes a fighting stance, ready to face the prince's challenge. William meets his gaze with a sharp grin, accepting his readiness. A title page shows Prince William and Teresa standing back-to-back. A flashback begins, showing a younger prince with a determined expression. William was born the fourth son in the royal family of Mauritius. As a boy, he often stood alone, contemplating his future. After an older brother passed away, he effectively became the third son. His position in the line of succession was still uncertain and distant. The news that the crown princess was pregnant further secured the main line. This solidified his and his other brother's status as mere spares. William and his brother Edward had no intention of fading into obscurity. Their options were adoption into other noble houses or finding their own way. William, however, had no interest in being adopted by another family. He looked to the training fields, seeing his path in martial skill. He sought to build a name for himself, not inherit one. He trained relentlessly alongside knights and common soldiers alike. He was confident that his own strength would be his greatest asset. He enrolled in the night school to prove his martial prowess to the world. Back in the present, the duel between William and Ballad finally begins. With a wide grin, William shouts that he is coming for him. Ballad calmly replies that he is ready whenever the prince is. Their friends and instructor Lombardo watch the match with serious expressions. A sharp sound effect marks the explosive start of their fight. Their practice spears clash in the center of the arena with a brilliant flash. Ballad holds his ground against the initial blow, his eyes narrowed. William lets out a frustrated sound as he presses his relentless attack. Ballad is forced to give ground, pushed back by the prince's assault. He quickly realizes that the prince is not just some arrogant noble. He is utterly suppressed, unable to take a single step forward. Teresa, Brooks, and Silk watch the one-sided fight with confused expressions. The prince continues his furious assault, giving Ballad no room to breathe. Ballad analyzes his opponent, brilliant but too reliant on raw power. William notes that Ballad seems to know a fair bit about him. Ballad expertly parries another powerful blow aimed at his head. The prince concedes that this knowledge is also a form of strength. The intense, high-speed exchange of blows continues across the arena floor. Ballad manages to block a powerful strike aimed squarely at his chest. William taunts him, asking if that was the best he could do. He unleashes a flurry of rapid thrusts, overwhelming Ballad's defense. Ballad cries out as he is forced to block the relentless barrage. In a desperate, unconventional move, Ballad throws his own spear into the air. William's eyes widen in shock, his gaze drawn upward for a fatal second. A small, weighted pouch flies through the air toward the prince's hand. The pouch strikes its mark, and William is forced to drop his weapon. Ballad stands over him, explaining that a fight is more than just techniques. William is in disbelief, unable to process being cornered so easily. He realizes that none of the knights in the order ever taught him this. He had always been told he could give any active knight a hard time. He wonders if he became complacent after accepting all their flattery. He grits his teeth in frustration, cursing his own foolishness. Ballad tells him he is not weak, just unbalanced and needing practice. With a warm smile, he assures the prince he can become much stronger. William looks up, his expression a mixture of surprise and genuine consideration. Ballad recalls his mother's brutal training with a pained smile. He stands before Prince William, acknowledging the prince's words. William concedes the point, prompting Ballad to ask how he grew so strong. Ballad explains he simply had to get stronger to survive. Instructor Lombardo raises his arm, declaring Ballad Cornelius the victor. Humbled, Prince William gracefully accepts his loss for the day. Ballad grins, addressing his defeated opponent as senior. He tells his junior that a defeat is nothing to be ashamed of. The second promotion exam begins, a fierce duel between Silk and Teresa. Silk grits her teeth, acknowledging her opponent is incredibly strong. Teresa grins, complimenting Lady Silk on being rather impressive. Their staves connect with a brilliant flash of impact. Pushed onto the defensive, Silk realizes she is in trouble. Teresa roars with a triumphant grin, believing she has her now. She unleashes an explosive charge, rocketing across the arena floor. Silk braces herself, preparing for the powerful incoming attack. The other students watch the intense fight from the sidelines. Silk prepares her counter, shouting for Teresa to take that. She deftly trips the charging Teresa, sending her flying through the air. Teresa lets out a surprised gasp as she tumbles uncontrollably. The instructor and students can only utter a collective, shocked ah. Silk looks on, surprised by the match's sudden conclusion. The victor is declared as she stands over the dazed Teresa. She rushes to her opponent's side, urging her to pull herself together. Teresa suddenly sits up, throwing her arms around a surprised Silk. With hearts in her eyes, she praises Silk's brilliant skill. Silk remembers Teresa's promise to show her something interesting. She is utterly flustered as Teresa calls her dear sister. Teresa throws her hands up, stopping Silk from leaving. A blushing Silk insists she is not interested in that sort of thing. Teresa laughs, calling her shy as Ballad watches, bewildered. She declares that shyness only adds to a beautiful woman's charm. The onlookers are baffled by her strange and impressive behavior. Instructor Lombardo sighs, relieved the unusual exam is finally over. Later, the students gather in the school's grand hall. Teresa, now in a maid uniform, compliments Sei on her appearance. Sei is utterly horrified by this unexpected and unwelcome development. Teresa greets her with a cheerful wave, completely ignoring her shock. Ballad looks on helplessly as Sei begs him to save her. He apologizes profusely, admitting that he is powerless to help. Teresa playfully grabs the mortified Sei from behind. Sei shrieks in flustered horror at the inappropriate touching. Teresa continues, complimenting Sei's splendid and well-formed figure. The male students cheer as Sei protests where she is being touched. Ballad moans that this is too much stimulation for a young man. He clutches himself, mortified by the scene unfolding before him. Silk watches the entire spectacle with an expression of pure disgust. Ballad defends his reaction as an act of God, but she is unimpressed. Teresa continues her flattery, praising Sei's splendid sensitivity. A mortified Sei clenches her fists, begging for it to stop. She pleads with Teresa to let her go already. The chapter ends on Sei's horrified, blushing face. The scene shifts to the quiet courtyard of the night school. Sei finds her young master working diligently by the well. She and the others wonder what he is making now. Ballad explains he was thinking of a way to lighten her load. He demonstrates his new invention to a confused Sei. It is a simple metal hand pump for drawing water. Even in the capital, drawing water is a task of raw strength. For women and children, it is incredibly heavy labor. Sei had to perform this arduous task every morning at the school. Ballad had only recently noticed her red, rough hands. Back home, this work had always been left to other servants. But his modern knowledge refused to accept this drudgery as normal. Thus, his inner soul, Maseru, proposed making a hand pump. The device is structurally simple and easy to construct. Ballad encourages a curious Sei to try it for herself. She tentatively begins to work the handle up and down. A trickle of water finally emerges from the spout. Her friends gasp in amazement as water gushes forth. Say is stunned by how simple and amazing it is. Brooks tries out a simple wheelbarrow, finding it easy to use. Silk and the others eagerly take turns trying to pump. William asks if the unbelievable device uses magic. Ballad thinks to himself that he has changed the world yet again. William is shocked, wondering if Ballad grasps its importance. The prince asks if the device was difficult to make. Ballad confirms that it is simple enough for mass production. An excited William decides to speak with his father, the king. Ballad is surprised by the prince's immediate and intense interest. He realizes gaining the royal family's attention might be a good idea. He explains he must first consult the person who actually built it. He thinks of his business partners, Selena and Gort. William asks to meet these people Ballad cares so much about. Ballad eyes him suspiciously, asking if he is plotting something. William admits he's had his eye on the company's lady president. Ballad gives the prince a flat, unimpressed look. He bluntly tells the prince that he is not her type. He turns to leave with Say, the conversation now over. Say calls out for her young master to please wait for her. She reaches out, begging him not to leave her here. Teresa grabs Say, vowing to draw water for her fair skin. Say's cries for her young master echo through the courtyard. The scene shifts to the imposing and magnificent Camelin Castle. Inside, the Prime Minister approaches the throne to make his report. King Welkenvy notes that someone has taken William by the reins. Prime Minister Harold confirms it seems to be that boy. The king muses over a report on Ballad's unusual family. Two nobles argue about Prince William's surprising new behavior. A Beastman noble apologizes for the prince's past recklessness. King Welkin admits he cannot help but spoil his youngest son, Prince William. The Prime Minister is relieved the prince has calmed, noting Ballad's growth will benefit the kingdom. The king mentions hearing that Count Ignis's son has created something interesting. Harold confirms the report, a device that allows easy water drawing for anyone. The king's interest is piqued, a thoughtful expression on his face. He excitedly asks if the device uses magic, only to be told it doesn't. The king sinks into his throne, contemplating the staggering, non-magical invention. He declares this is an alarming development that could affect the entire country. Harold explains that freeing up manpower from this chore will boost the nation's might. He continues, noting the profound effect this will have on the common populace. The king realizes this support from the masses could help quiet troublesome nobles. A sly smile crosses his face as he acknowledges Ballad's impressive potential. His thoughts then turn to the sovereign company and its lucrative sugar business. Harold reports that bureaucrats are already demanding the sugar's secrets for themselves. The king dismisses them, knowing they're driven by greed, not national interest. He agrees with Harold's suggestion to increase surveillance on matter. The king decides to watch Ballad and his friends, sensing they could become a trump card. The Prime Minister bows his head, accepting his king's command. In the Ministry of Finance, a group of nobles complains about the king's actions. They grumble that there is no need to protect upstarts and border barbarians. One worries that the doubting company's unchecked growth will hurt the economy. They lament that at this rate, their ability to demand bribes will disappear. The conversation turns to the hardest blow their corrupt enterprise has suffered. They recall Director Cran's death, which severed their contact with the company. Since his passing, they have been unable to get a hold on the company's dealings. A portly noble insists they must bring these border companies back onto the right path. A fist clenches as another declares they must ensure all companies are on equal footing. They dismiss passing a new law, fearing it would cost them existing rights. Loaning money to competitors is also deemed useless. This problem can't be bought off. A noble fumes that the hair cleanser is the worst part, as they can't make knockoffs. He explains that the product has already captured the attention of too many other nobles. Because of its powerful connections, they cannot lay a finger on the company. The cabal's pale-haired ringleader smiles, having found a solution to their problem. He slams his hands on the table, declaring they will target the weakest link. A nervous Marquis Mallory asks him to clarify his meaning. The ringleader explains that Doubting is partnered with a small company run by a girl. He posits that this worthless company must hold some vital secret to be treated as an equal. He recalls that confronting the sovereign company head-on has already proven pointless. With a malicious grin, he suggests that if they target the girl, their options are limitless. The other nobles express their fear, asking who among them would risk such a thing. The ringleader dismisses their worries, stating he has already made arrangements. He prepares to introduce the person he has chosen for this dangerous task. He presents Baron Ball, who will bravely handle the matter for them. Baron Ball, unaware of the plot, says he heard there was a profitable discussion here. He looks around in confusion, asking what bravery has to do with anything.